Welcome to the February 11th, 2014 Raymond Board of Selectmen meeting. We have a full agenda this evening, so we'll get started with the minutes of the January 14th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in
Yeah,
favor?
no, hold on. The only one was, there was a motion by Lonnie Taylor to accept the liquor license, and it wasn't, you don't have a second down on the first page.
Okay.
So I think that was me, but I'm not positive, so I just remember seeing that before. And it was just on the Cafe Sebago thing.
I'll look that up.
All those in favor? Motion carried. Next is public hearing regarding funding from Open Space Fund for the Tenny River Corridor Project. Who is speaking on that? Who's representing?
I'm representing. Do you want me to do a presentation?
Yes, you would, please. First of all, I must say that I have to recuse myself from this.
Right, as in a butter. My name is Ann Gass, and I'm a property owner in Raymond, although not a resident. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Tenny River Corridor Protection Project. And this is a project where we're trying to protect both sides of the Tenny River, extending from Crescent Lake to Panther Pond. That is an area that the town of Raymond, through other work that it's been involved with, has identified as high priority for water quality protection and habitat protection, because it is part of the watershed that feeds into Sebago Lake. And so we have secured, we're sort of doing this in stages, and phase one is we've secured a contract to acquire one parcel along the Tenny River that abuts the Pine Tree camp, the Boy Scouts camp there. So we have a three-way partnership, a four-way kind of including the town. There's some local residents, there's the Pine Tree Council of the Boy Scouts, Loon Echo Land Trust, which will hold the easement, the conservation easement, and then we're asking the town of Raymond to pitch in $15,000, and that's the subject of the discussion tonight, and that's a proposed warrant article for your next vote in June. The total purchase price for the property is $200,000. We've raised about, and I think I'm a little behind, a little over $130,000 to date. The town of Raymond's contribution would be matched by the Portland Water District. They would kick in some additional funds, so that would leverage additional dollars, and we're continuing to do private fundraising as well. So that's a very brief summary. I'm happy to elaborate or go on at length if you'd like me to.
Yes, you.
Mr. Gifford is recusing himself, so I will be running this public hearing. Any questions from Mrs. Gass? From the board?
Joe, do you know if the 130 is including the 15,000 proposed from Raymond, or is it before the 15,000?
Before.
So that would bring it up to 145 plus whatever extra the water district would give.
That's correct, yeah.
And when is the end of your contract for raising the money? Do you know?
August of 2014.
So coming right up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions? Mrs. Gass, I have in reviewing the paperwork that we have in front of us here, the Conservation Commission voted on March 7th to expend $10,000 from the Raymond Open Space Fund. Was there ever a revote taken to expend $15,000?
Yes, I believe there was, yeah.
Is there document of that anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, the town has that documentation.
We have that?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, Ms. Gass?
Would it be helpful to read the warrant article itself?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, the article, which is at this point unnumbered of course, is to see if the town will vote to appropriate $15,000 from the Open Space Fund to donate to the Boy Scouts Pine Tree Council for the purchase of a 30-acre parcel of land along the southeastern side of the Tenny River for conservation purposes. Of course, the recommendations from the Conservation Commission, Board of Selectmen, and Budget Finance Committee are also remaining to be made.
One other question from me, Mrs. Gass. One of the problems I always have whenever we purchase land down a private road is the maintenance of the private road. Will there be funds in the Loon Echo Land Trust to maintain that private road?
No, there's no funds envisioned to maintain the private road because there's no need to. I mean, the access is gonna be via the river, as we've discussed at other meetings, because it is a private road, and there's no parking area set up now for public access. The Scouts are envisioning that in the summer, during their camp season, they'll use that property for additional scouting activities, programming, and then the rest of the year would be available, by people, walking or snowmobiling or accessing it from the river via canoe, kayaks, kind of thing.
So you're saying nobody will be going down that private road, and the maintenance of that private road won't fall to the landowners along the road?
Yeah, as it has all along. And the Boy Scouts are definitely party to that agreement and fund a good chunk of the the road maintenance.
Okay.
So if I'm hoping this wouldn't happen, but if someone was to get hurt, you're going to take them to a safe haven from the river, or at that point you would use this private road that it accesses the...
I would guess that they would use the private road or whatever is easiest to access the person who was injured, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly...
So you do need that road up to par in order to help in case of an emergency.
Well, I mean, it's not the only possible access. There is the access from the river, but I mean, I think the road already, the town must already have standards for private road ownership, right, for getting emergency vehicles in and out. So I wouldn't envision that it would be upgraded to any additional standard other than what's, already required. There are long-standing property owners back there.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Other members who would like to testify? Step right up.
Dana Desjardins, 64 River Road. I've lived on the River Road now for over 12 years, and I can't see any access by snowmobile via the river. You gotta go down the road. There's a standing, there's a snowmobile trail right now, and I'm not totally against this project. The problem I have with this project is nothing is being discussed with the landowners that abut this property. We have a snowmobile trail right now that I would like to talk to the Boy Scouts about, possibly have it moved into the woods where it should be, so when they come out on my road right now that I plow, that I pay for, nobody pays for the plowing on that road except me and Hall Thompson. It's not part of the association dues. We do not have an association that is official. So we all get together as good neighbors and we chip in and we pay our bills. But when the snowmobiles come off the trail and get on the snowbank before I get to plow, it packs the snow in, so the road is getting narrow right now. And we're expecting another foot and a half of snow, possibly Thursday. And I drive on a snowmobile trail to go to my house. It's part of the snowmobile trail. One of those things that I'd like to see is that snowmobile trail moved inside to the woods. Another thing I'd like to see is if the possibility of this project being put in a wildlife management program, meaning no hunting. I'm a hunter, but I have to drive through that road every October and November, and you got hunters on both sides of the roads that are they're basically trespassing, no permission, and it's like a gauntlet. We've had poaching issues. The Maine Game Warden Service is aware of it. 6 deer in 1 year by one person. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that for many reasons, but the poaching is unbelievable on that road. Another thing that's not being addressed is I have legal access to that property. That's, through my deed to certain things like the spring. I want to know what's going to happen to my legal, rights on this property. And personally, Lassen, we have better things to spend $15,000 on than a private land deal. That's going to take more taxpayer dollars away from this town. I'm on the budget committee, and I know we got a budget coming up shortly, and we're going to be nickeling and diming every department in this town to try to get it down to where we can make things affordable for the people of this town. And I personally think we have plenty of open space in this town. It's nice to protect the Tenny River, but allowing public access to the Tenny River Road, which is what's going to happen, and nobody can stop this. You're saying it's going to be from the river, but that's not going to happen. They're going to come down the road and park at the Boy Scout parking lot, which is proposed to be increased by 150 parking spaces. That's in their big plan, all right? And if nobody has read that big plan, they should. I represent my road. I don't think there's anybody here tonight no, I don't see anybody else except the landowners, Stephanie and Dennis are here. But, nobody else that lives down there is here. And we've got to have, at least, if we're going to have increased traffic, we want increased money, to help pay for these things. It costs money to keep that road. It's a one-lane road. And if nobody believes me, go down there right now. We got a better luge run than they do in Sochi. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Desjardins? Yes?
Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. I just would like to make a clarification. I think Mr. Desjardins alluded to it, and I think Ms. Gass might have alluded to it, that if you drive down the River Road, there is a significant parking lot down on both Boy Scout property and bleeding over onto this particular parcel. So to characterize it as that there's no parking, no access, I don't think is absolutely correct, because my first pull of that, as we were looking at that in relationship to other parking issues, for instance, down in Raymond Cape, I would suggest you probably could put 45 or 50 cars down in that particular area. There's also, I believe, some expansion plans going forward to the planning board for the Plains Road access for parking, but that wouldn't affect this parcel. I'm just saying, as Mr. Foster might have said, it's a parking lot in the woods. It's not paved. It's somewhat gravelled in and cleared lot, and but it is parking. So to think that people won't drive down River Road and go into that unless you have some kind of access plan, which if this was going before the planning board, all of these issues in site plan review would be considered. What's the access? What's the maintenance plan on the road? How does emergency services respond and get the input from all those services? So again, this is part of the debate going forward, not for your consideration tonight, I would imagine, just to go forward to town meeting. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Levitt? Other comments? Larry?
My name is Lawrence Murch, and I live on the Webb's Mills Road. And I would like to make just 2 points for the selectmen to consider. Number one is that when any property receives a tax reduction, the remaining taxpayers must make up this loss. And number 2, is this a benefit for most of the town people of Raymond, or is it mainly a benefit for a few selfish abutters of this land? And then I would like to leave this with you. This was in the Wall Street Journal the other day, and it is a article about the land trust landmark cases, and it highlights Hadley, Massachusetts, and what interested me most, it highlights a problem they're having in a town, Leamington, which is just on the other side of Standish. And the town of Leamington is suing, and it's before the Supreme Court because they're losing tax revenue from land that's taken off the tax rolls. And I'd like to leave it with this young lady, and I would urge that all of you selectmen read it. It's in a better way than I could quickly explain to you the problem that they are having when you take land off the tax rolls. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murch? Thank you. Bob?
Bob Goslin, 11 Eagles View, also a member of the Budget Finance Committee. Just for a point of clarification, the funds being requested, $15,000, are from an account that's already standing, and they're just looking to release those funds for this purchase? Or is this additional tax dollars to be voted on at the time of the warrant article being voted on?
This comes out of the Conservation Commission's money. They get any tree growth penalty money that's paid in due to removing land from tree growth. Usually there's a penalty. That penalty goes to the Raymond Conservation Commission for purchasing of land and open space.
So these funds have already been saved, allocated,
There's
and
about
looking
$50,000.
permission to release?
There's about
For this
$50,000 in that account right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Goslin? Saying none. Dana?
Dana Desjardins, 64 River Road. That money that is allocated through tree fund growth belongs to the people of Raymond. It was voted at town meeting. I don't know when it was. You might have been the moderator, Joe, at that meeting. I mean,
It was probably 8 or 9 years ago.
yeah, and in my opinion, when there's money taken out of tree growth, it belongs to everyone, not to one certain group. I was never for that. But whatever, you know, it's one of those things that we have better things to spend money on in this town. Being a member of the budget committee, I know it's coming up in the budget, and you guys know, and we want to spend $15,000. I don't think that money should have ever been allowed. There's no other town in the area that gives money to conservation through tree growth. Not one. I did my research, and there's not one. Raymond voted it in, whether it's constitutional or not. I don't think it is, but it was voted in at town meeting. And you know what happens at town meeting happens. And when there's 50 people that show up, or 200, you know, that's how it goes. Maybe next town meeting we'll have 300 people. Thank you.
Okay. Further comment? Yep. Step right up. Please state your name and your address.
Hello, I'm Peggy Jensen from Meadow Road, and I certainly appreciate the concerns that the people have been expressing tonight about the access issues, but I have a duty that I need to perform as president of the Panther Pond Association. Even though I'm active in many activities here in town, tonight I'm speaking for that group. I want to tell you that as an association, we are supporting this effort to conserve this land. And we've done so not only with our words, but also with our action. We have contributed, for us, a substantial sum to the purchase price. And we've done that because conserving this land is in keeping with the purpose of the association when it was formed. And our purpose is to promote the protection and enhancement of the water quality of Panther Pond and to preserve its ecological, economic, recreational, and aesthetic value. Sometimes we shorten that to just say to preserve and protect a quality lake environment. As you know, Panther Pond Association volunteers working with Raymond Waterways and the town have worked very hard to implement 2 Clean Water Act grants. And in doing so, we've managed to stop the importation of more than 100 tons of soil particles into Panther Pond. Each soil particle has the capacity for carrying phosphorus. And phosphorus is that element that feeds aquatic life. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's a nuisance. Of particular concern in Panther is that phosphorus is the only element that can be controlled that's essential for the life cycle of a particular blue-green alga. It's called Gliotrichia acuminata. I have to tell you, it took me a couple years to learn how to say that. Sometimes we just call it glio. It's now been determined that it's a cyanobacterium, which means it's toxic in sufficient quantities to humans. It can produce a reaction on the skin, or to the eyes, or to the nervous system. This is in some of our water bodies. We know that it's in Crescent Lake, and we know that it's in Panther Pond. We've been supporting, the association has been supporting and facilitating research done by a number of colleges for several summers now. When in the late summer, when the water is warm and we've had a lot of sunshine, this particular organism has progressed in its life cycle so that it can produce a really heavy bloom, and in some areas can turn the water to like pea soup conditions. It's very unappealing, and it's something that we do not want to encourage, certainly. So we are very, very determined to try to reduce the amount of phosphorus that gets into our waters. So we consider conserving this land, reducing the possibility of development on it to a minimum, to be critically important to the health of our waterways. Not only would it prevent more importation of phosphorus, but preserving that land would also help preserve habitat for various flora and fauna, including, perhaps you already know, a lovely wild orchid that blooms in June along the river, a rarely seen pitcher plants that are along the river, and even tinier insect-eating plants that are called sundews. If you haven't seen those, I'd be happy to give you a tour on the river sometime because they're very, very special, and we want to preserve those. We all know that healthy waters need healthy surrounding ecosystems. This project will help keep a large area of Raymond's special resources healthy for the use and enjoyment of future generations. It will also help preserve the unusual span of peaceful and nearly wild viewscape along the river. That sense of special place draws many visitors to Raymond to quietly canoe or kayak down the river. And they, in turn, support our local businesses and help to keep our entire community healthy. PPA already provides volunteers trained by Maine Volunteer Lakes Monitoring Project who every summer carefully examine all the water area of the river where sunlight can penetrate to the bottom, checking for any invasives that might have been introduced. Actually, we go up to the power line crossing, and volunteers from Crescent Lake survey the upper end of the river. We'll continue to provide that service as long as we can continue to recruit and train sufficient numbers of volunteers. I can assure you that the people who spend time on the river and on the other waterways of Raymond treasure the special place that Tenny is. We ask you to support the request for funds to purchase the land as proposed. Such a purchase, with the agreed-upon land uses, will greatly contribute to the ongoing health of all the waterways downstream. Thank you.
Any questions from Ms. Jensen? Thank you. Russ?
Russ Hutchinson, North Raymond Road, and I'm a member of the Raymond Conservation Commission. And I just wanted to state that the Tenny River Corridor has been identified as one of the critical habitats in the town through our open space plan, and the opportunity to help preserve that is one of the high priorities we have within the town. And I know that Peggy's just been quite articulate in explaining a lot of the reasons why we think it's valuable, but it's a wonderful watershed to help clarify any runoff into the lake. It's a nursery for fish and for wildlife, and loons nest in there. So there's a lot of reasons to preserve it, and there's a lot of reasons why we, on the Conservation Commission, think it's an excellent opportunity to help preserve that corridor. And just to round back to the question on funding, and Joe, maybe you remember, or some of the other folks, I believe in past town meetings, we've also come forth and asked the town to set aside monies directly for the open space fund, not just for the tree growth, through tree growth funding. So I think there's also been money that's been voted in the past directly to be set aside into this open space fund that we're come forth to make the recommendation to spend some of those funds on there. And also that, it's not our money, it's the town's money that's been set aside, and we can only make a recommendation that we think it's a worthy project to spend the money on. And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen to go ahead and approve the warrant, and then it goes back to the townspeople, and the townspeople make the decision whether or not they want to spend the money on these efforts. It's not us spending the money, it's the town people who are actually making the vote to spend the money. So I just want to emphasize that. And again, Raymond Conservation Commission has identified this as a critical habitat. We think it's a worthy project, and I'd just like to encourage the select board to go ahead and move the article into and put it in front of the town for a vote at our town meeting. Thank you.
Any questions from Mr. Hutchins? Thank you. Dana?
Dana Desjardins, 64 River Road. I'd like to thank the people that do the work on the cleaning up the lakes and stuff. I mean, they do a good job, and this has nothing to do with what they do. And Russ, I mean, conservation. I mean, it's great. We all believe in that. But we're talking about a private road, and we're talking about people that are gonna be driving on a private road, not knowing, because everybody's gonna think it's we're using public funds. It's Loon Echo. Loon Echo has properties. I believe John Rand's property is posted against no hunting. The people that live on the River Road and the people who are behind this project have to come together, and we have to, make things work together with the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts currently don't allow hunting on the Plains Road. And if they want to go with that model on the River Road, without allowing public access, they're going to have to post their land, because I've spoken to the Warden Service, and the only way the Warden Service is going to enforce it is if it's posted. I've spoken to 4 or 5 different game wardens that investigated the poaching that was going on down there. It's gone beyond. It's crazy. It's a violation of game laws, and ethics, and it happens. And if they don't post their land and the town goes ahead with the $15,000, in my opinion, that opens it up to the public because we're using public funds. Unless it's specifically detailed in the deal, what you guys are doing, you're giving public funds to a private project. And I just, you know, as a landowner down there, I mean, these folks don't live down there. You know, Peggy doesn't live down there. I do. You know, Carrie doesn't live down there. You know, she's with Loon Echo. That's fine. You know, all these people are worried about is, you know, it's just, let's save the trees and all this stuff. But, you know, I love to save the trees too, but, and the land, but we're talking about a private road, not a public road. And unless somebody wants to start plowing and sanding the road I live on, I'm gonna fight this until you know, I get some answers. Nobody has talked to the landowners. It's not your problem, guys. It's the people that are organizing this purchase. I haven't heard from the Boy Scouts. I haven't heard from Loon Echo. I have heard nothing. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Questions?
Am I hearing that correctly that, because I haven't been down River Road in years, probably because it's private, but
Come on down. Bring your slate.
there is a 40 to 45 car parking lot on the Campine's land
Yep.
that is off of River Road?
Yep.
And we really don't feel that we're going
Let-
to use...
Let me get up here and that was built, and I
Can you
wish the
shut
Boy
off your
Scout.
phone, please?
I wish the Boy Scout, Bob's here. He knows. I mean, that was donated time. Materials were you know, donated at a reduced cost, right, Bob? And there was 3 different companies. I mean,
Okay.
you'd know better than I
Can you
do,
address
but
the select board, please?
you know,
I don't want to have a
he was
conversation going.
Bob was the past leader over there, and I mean, he would know better, but I mean, I lived there, so I know. Grondon was down there, P&K was down there. There was quite a few companies down there donating equipment, materials, you know,
So
on weekends.
what I'm trying to get at is that there is a parking lot off,
Yes.
off of this road.
Yeah, it's
and
about-
We don't feel that we're going to use this road, this private road,
Yeah.
to access this land when there's a multi-car parking lot that is only accessed by
River Road. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm all for the acquisition. I'm all for a lot of it, but I have a problem that we haven't set up some type of funds to maintain this road. It has nothing to do with that. I understand it's private. There's probably some shaky things there, but it's going to be used. There's no question about it. And
Unless it's posted, I mean, if you don't post your property, the Maine Warden Service will not enforce. If it's posted, they will. If it's not,
if it's posted and,
They'll
and it's
enforce
private, are they going to go down there to check it out? Or the
Yes, they
only
will.
reason they'll go down there is if they get a complaint from one of the landowners to go check it out.
well, they'll get a complaint. If it's posted, they'll get a complaint.
I'm assuming there's an easement for that road to whoever owns that land in the back. Is that true?
Well, the easement,
The easement says you could maintain this road and you can go across this road, but it's an easement to the property out back.
yes,
Is that correct?
yes,
Yes?
yes,
Yep, makes sense
Yes.
to me now.
yes, it does. But, you know, it's an easement, and it's still a private road.
Right, but,
But in order to get to it, you need to maintain it.
right.
So your River Road is none of our property except this gentleman, and we use it or you guys use it to get to your land.
Exactly.
And so,
And
in order for
usually-
you to use it, or in order for you to get to your home, you need to use it, and in order for you to use it, you need to maintain it.
Exactly.
In order for it to be roadworthy.
Right.
Exactly. And,
Those
Yeah, I know
easements
what
usually say, you as the landowner
Maintain it.
maintain the road.
yes,
Right.
and I,
Right.
Bruce Tupper can, is, you know, you know, he knows how the road is. He's been down there with the big truck, and it's a one-lane road. We don't even get trash pickup down there anymore. So,
Any further questions? No? Ann,
Yeah, just a couple
can you
clarifications.
just state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, Ann Gass, Raymond Maine, property owner on River Road. And just a few clarifications. And one is that, certainly the scouts have been undertaking a big strategic planning exercise where they've reached out to a lot of, not just abutters, but other Raymond residents to talk about the use of their full campus there, and would be delighted to talk about any issues related to access to the property or use of the property. I don't want to belabor this private parking lot and road issue any longer, but that parking lot is on Boy Scout land, and it's theirs. It's their parking lot, and they can.
And they go with part of that easement that you need to take care of it in order to get to your land where your parking lot is.
Right.
Or Dana's house, or anyone else's house. Anyone that uses it needs to help maintain it.
Right, and they contribute to the cost of the upkeep, and if there's an issue with, I wasn't aware that Dana is plowing the road himself, so we can certainly, we should have a conversation as a road association, even if it's informal, in terms of contributing to that upkeep, and I'm certain we're all happy to do that. I guess I just want to acknowledge that, it certainly could have been a choice and it was a consideration of a number of the abutters or property owners in the area to consider simply purchasing the land and removing it, and owning it ourselves. But when I looked at the work that the town of Raymond and the Conservation Commission had already done before this project was ever contemplated, on with the work with the Green Print and the Trust for Public Lands, there already a lot of work had gone into identifying the Teddy River as a high priority area, as I mentioned earlier, and Peggy really spoke so eloquently to. It seemed to me this was a golden opportunity to not just protect the narrow interests of a few property owners, but to do what the town of Raymond had and the Conservation Commission had already identified as a really important vital project for water quality and habitat protection. And I was happy to lend, honestly, it would have been a lot easier to simply write a check and be done with it. I mean, we've spent hundreds of hours on this already, and we'll spend quite a bit more before we're done. It would have been a lot easier to take the easier route, but we launched into this believing this really was in the public interest and something that we could be proud of doing and would be beneficial to the environment and to people who drink water from the lakes and everything over the long term. So I just wanted to kind of make that point.
Okay, I was remiss, I didn't realize you weren't a resident of Raymond, so since it's a public hearing, I'm going to seek unanimous consent to allow non-residents to address the select board. Anybody else?
Greg Foster, 29 Ledge Hill Road. I remember when we voted to use the tree growth tax money to put into a fund to do just what you're trying to do now. I was opposed to that for a lot of reasons, and I still am. I don't really think it's a wise use to take money from property owners and transfer it to a use where you take property and in effect take it off the tax rolls. And I have the same concern that Larry March expressed in that regard, and I certainly hope you read the article that he mentioned. And beyond that, what you do with this money is probably going to have nothing to do with future money that comes from tree growth penalties. And I would entertain the selectmen to remove that from our ordinance, or however we've got it in there, that we no longer contribute funding for this purpose. I deal a lot with property owners. I have a lot of knowledge of property ownership issues and so forth, and I just truly believe it's not an appropriate use to take these monies and purchase land. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Foster? Okay. Any further comment? Okay.
I'm Carrie Wallio from Loon Echo Land Trust, non-resident, and I just wanted to clarify our role. I've heard some comments and statements about Loon Echo. We are a supporting project partner, and we intend to be the conservation easement holder and not the landowner. The landowner would be the Boy Scouts. And so we're working on terms that you've seen under a draft conservation easement that speak to the public benefits of the project and would allow certain levels of public access, encouraged mainly again from the river, and giving the Boy Scouts the ability to work with their neighbors to deal with any problematic issues, which I've heard a lot about today, being the road and other issues, hunting. And so the Boy Scouts, as a landowner, could work with the neighbors to work out those issues, and Loon Echo would just serve as a higher protection organization to make sure the conservation values and features are forever conserved. So if you had any questions about that easement document, which was provided to you a while back, you can let me know. And then just to comment a little bit on the open space fund, I'm not familiar with the history in Raymond about the tree growth penalty funds, but there are many other towns in the state of Maine that use that or similar mechanisms to fund their open space plan fund. The town of Denmark just started to use tree growth penalty funds to create their fund about a year or two ago. Others just appropriate money to open space funds. And the Maine Association of Conservation Commissions could probably tell you exactly how many towns use that same or similar mechanisms to fund open space protection. It's not uncommon, and I encourage you to continue. It's a way for the town to contribute to meaningful projects.
Any questions from Mr. Waller? No, thank you. Further comment? Seeing none, I declare the hearing closed. Now up to the select board to discuss this.
I do think that Dana brought up some great points as a landowner down there. I do think that some of the questions you and Lonnie asked about easements and the easements that go with properties, and even the current landowner who owns property down there has a responsibility to help with the road. And a new owner would have responsibility to help with the road. If there's a parking lot down there, that landowner has responsibility to help with the road. But that's part of the easement that goes with the land, as opposed to the sale of the land. The sale of the land will transfer that easement to the new owner. So I do think those are great issues for their informal association to talk with whoever a new landowner is. But I do think he brings up good points. I'm just trying to figure out how those points fit into our discussion.
Right, because what we have in front of us now is a warrant article that doesn't mention road maintenance on a private road. I mean, we could amend that warrant article.
I would definitely would like to see the conversation happen between
The Boy Scouts.
right, the Boy Scouts and the people that live on River Road to make sure that they are in good standing to help or do their share in making sure that the road is maintained to whatever, and other than that piece, I'm game. I do understand where Greg's coming from, and that you shouldn't be taking money from citizens that may lose their land because of that. But I think that's a small con or bad part to, a big thing that is very good.
I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
Right.
what responsibility do we have? Our 15,000 of 200,000 to dictate a condition of negotiation in a purchase that's already been negotiated, it's a contract. The easement is the responsibility of the landowner to be responsible to his neighbors.
And once I knew of the easement, I had no more questions because that's.
So I would have a hard time
This is
tacking
not
it on.
town-owned land.
Right,
All we are doing as a select board is saying, okay, you could have $15,000, take it to town meeting. If you remember the Knapp Road issue on Raymond Pond, when they were trying to put that public access in there, I was opposed to it because it was a private road that the state was just gonna allow people to go up and down that private road without putting a dime into maintaining that road. And it was gonna fall on the people who lived on that road. The Attorney General ended up reversing the decision of IF&W, saying you cannot just take that road without maintaining that road. This is a similar situation. The problem is, this isn't the town taking over that land. This is, we have no control over that land.
it's it is currently a private
It's
landowner, it's going to be a private
private
landowner.
road, and it's a land deal between the land trust and the Boy Scouts.
That's what I was gonna, when you brought that up, I mean, it's no different than any other private road
Right.
that has an association, and they have to work it out amongst ourselves, and for us to sit up here and put that in there, I think it's not our job to do that, is what it is. We have just the 15,000 to say, let's take it to the people or not.
Yeah.
And then they have to deal with it, and right now with Dana, it's like he should be talking to his neighbors that aren't here and stuff like that, as far as maintaining the road and
Pulling an
pulling it.
association together that
Exactly.
will go to
It's no
Loon,
different
that
from-
will go to the Boy Scouts and say, this is, in order for us to, to be happy, and we all, and I know that everyone is trying to come to that agreement, we need to have some type of plan.
I don't
there
think it's
are
any
five-
different.
Are there 5 houses down there, 5 residences?
At least,
More than that?
I was gonna say 12.
12?
I think it was in our paperwork at some point, they talked about how many.
Then that's
It's
no different
surprising
from
that there's
any
not
other
an
private road.
association.
Right,
They
well, that's
need
just
to.
it.
Right.
They should,
It's no
but it
different.
does sound like Dana's the only one down there all year round.
Nate said there's only 2 year
I
round.
think
Oh, there's
2
2
year
year
round.
round.
I think Dana, and I think there's one place almost to the end that's year round.
Well,
The rest of them are summer camps.
here's a question, if we put that in our easement, do they come to us and say, hey, so-and-so's not taking care of the road, their share of it, it's our responsibility to babysit?
No, we have nothing to do with that.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, and if we put that in there, then we've gotta say, that's kinda making us have a say in the road, when it's not even our property. We just got the 15,000 that they've already got in their account, is what it is. And it's not even us that's saying yes or no on the 15,000, we're taking it to the people of
Right,
the town.
which is the
what we're
best
doing.
way.
Right,
Absolutely the best way.
so,
And we did delay this an entire year. I mean, originally, the Conservation Commission was here
A
a
year
year ago, and we had questions about access, about which were all answered by legal question in terms of how and those things. And so those questions were answered, so they're coming back now. So we have had this in front of us a couple times. And they're much closer to their goal than they were a year ago. So I would make a motion that we send the warrant article to the town meeting.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. The article says to see if the town will vote to appropriate $15,000 from the Open Space Fund to donate to the Boy Scouts Pine Tree Council for the purchase of a 30-acre parcel of land along the southeastern side of the Teddy River for conservation purposes.
Is that obviously that's not the Boy Scout side, that's the opposite side.
Well, the Boy Scouts own both sides.
I know, but it's not where they have,
It's not where Camp Hines,
It's not.
the main entrance to Camp Hines, that's on the other side of the river. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Sam being quiet for that long down there. Sorry,
He
Sam.
was biting his tongue, he almost bit right through it. Okay.
Well, it's all over now. Thank you very much, Joe. Moving on to new business, we have now an informational presentation regarding Middle School Advisory Committee. Catriona Sangster, RSU number 14, Board of Directors Chair. Good
Good
evening.
evening. Let everybody head out first. I do have a few more handouts in the time frame that I had to get things to you. Couldn't get everything, so this is the most recent minutes from
Katrina, they were sent to
I
us.
I
Some
saw
of us
them
got them
pop up and I
electronically.
sent them out
We
to
all
them.
have
Yep.
those.
Great.
You
And
can
this is
pass
just a
them out.
graphic I'm going to refer to.
Anyone in the audience who may want them, we have them all.
We need the summary though.
I'll share Bruce's.
And what those minutes are is breaking down the options, right?
We need that one, Nate. We don't have that one.
So I'm Katrina, it looks like Catriona, but it's Katrina.
Katrina.
Yeah, it's okay.
Feels more like
Katrina Logan Sangster, and I am a Raymond resident, 33 Wawanock Road. Also serving a second term on the school board and currently the school chair, board chair. I just want to say thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. I really welcome the opportunity and to share some of the work of the school board and to open avenues for future dialogue and hopefully with others, not just those in the room here tonight. You've asked me to speak to the work of the Middle School Advisory Committee, which was formed this fall. And I just want to give you a little history. The board facility committee, and those notes, by the way, that you have is not what I'm presenting right now. Those are just from our most recent meetings, so you probably don't want to look at them right now. Well, I mean, you can if you don't want to listen to me. That's the first thing a teacher learns, right? Not to give
Go
the
look at it.
handouts until after you've made your presentation. So I've failed already. To give you a little history, the board facility committee at the board level recommended that there be a broader advisory committee be formed to focus on our middle level educational programming and facilities, basically to start brainstorming how we move forward long term given the following facts in our district. And this is where I'm going to refer to this little graphic that you have here. Sorry for the public, I don't have that. This actually it's kind of a work in progress, and this is going to be sent out when it's complete by listserv to the public, and so it will also be up on the website hopefully within the next week or so. Okay. Wyndham Middle School and Field Allen, which are the two buildings in Wyndham currently being used as middle school buildings, at this point are not optimal learning environments. They've been used beyond their predicted lifespans, and substantial repairs and improvements are needed to ensure a high-performing learning environment. Both buildings are currently operating over capacity, and the little graphic shows Wyndham Middle School was built in 1977, it's 37 years old, and Field Allen School was built in 1947, it's 68 years old. And some of the issues are highlighted here of those buildings. Jordan Small Middle School is in need of some repairs and is currently operating significantly under capacity. I believe the number right now is 189 students in a building that has a capacity of 350. So the school board facility committee, just the board level, felt like we were at a crossroads. We needed to determine a longer term vision to make decisions for the short term. Hence the board authorizing the formation of an advisory committee to include 3 residents from each town, Wyndham and Raymond. And in Raymond they are Tammy Hamilton, Jennifer Moore, and Ed Gagney. Also the principals from both middle schools, Jordan Small Middle School and Wyndham Middle School principals. A teacher from each middle school, and in Raymond that's Valerie Hammett, who's also a resident in Raymond. 3 to 4 school board members. We're currently at 3, but we've had some new board members come aboard since the elections in Wyndham, so we'll probably be having a 4th joining us soon. The director of facilities for the district, who's Bill Hansen, and the superintendent and assistant superintendent. That's who makes up the committee. The advisory committee's charge was as follows: to investigate and consider additions and or renovations to the current middle schools that would support high-performing middle-level educational programming in our communities. further to investigate and compare any proposed changes to the existing middle schools to that of a new consolidated middle school that supports high-performing middle-level educational programming in an efficient and cost-effective manner. So really just looking at all the options, beginning a journey. We've been meeting monthly since October. We've had 4 meetings thus far, and we do hope to share our findings and have a recommendation to the school board by the end of the school year, June 2014. That recommendation may or may not be a menu of choices for the board to consider bringing to the public. At this point, our meetings have been full of a lot of fact-finding. We had site visits of all the schools with Director of Facilities, Bill Hanson. We invited Lyndon Keck of PDT Architects in Portland, who has done work in our district and knows our buildings well, to speak to the status of our buildings and any implications or opportunities he saw from his perspective. In our most recent meeting in January, we began to discuss different options, of which we had 11 plus scenarios, including everything from renovations and repairs to new construction on the Wyndham campus to new construction at a new site and everything in between. That's the minutes from the last January meeting. And as I kind of alluded to, all the minutes are on the district website, rsu14.org, and if you go to the board superintendent tab, scroll down, and you'll see subcommittee meetings, and there's a graphic there that looks kind of like a spreadsheet. It's really easy to read. Go to the date, click on agenda, click on minutes, and other supporting documents. So hopefully that's one of our big efforts, is try to make this accessible and information the public can find. At this point, we are in the brainstorming phase and welcome and appreciate public input. It's important to have these conversations and to project forward, what do we want for our students 5, 10, 20 years from now. Our school-age population is decreasing and has been for years in Raymond, certainly since the economic downturn. We have to continue to offer quality programming to our students. Our families will otherwise move away from Raymond, and we don't want that. The question is, what does that look like and what can we afford? I believe we as a town need to be proactive in what we want for our kids and our community. And that's why I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to start the conversation and encourage other people to start talking about it. It is really important for me to mention here that finances are absolutely a part of the conversation that we're having at the advisory committee level, and we're seeking more information on what the economic impact of different scenarios might be, just in the beginning phases of doing that now. Our solutions need to be cost effective. In addition, community understanding and input has been a focus of our group as well, which is why we sought to have a greater representation, not just a board facility committee. This is a discussion about a long-term plan which will require community buy-in and support, regardless if the cost is small or large. We need to have schools which parents are eager and proud to send their children to. One of the concepts we have been discussing, come the time when we do have a recommendation at the board level, is to hold an advisory referendum. In essence, this would be a question on the ballot at election time, which does not bind us to move forward, but can give us a pulse of where the public stands in both communities, Wyndham and Raymond. I want to reiterate that this advisory committee was formed to begin to brainstorm and dream up a long-term vision. It's the beginning of a process, which would also continue to public forums and hopefully the advisory referendum I just referred to. I think beginning a conversation now about possibilities within our community sooner than later is a really healthy one, and I thank you for the opportunity to start that conversation. So that's all I have as far as a presentation, if you will, but I'm happy to field any questions.
Questions?
Yes. Hi. Sitting on my hands, but Katrina, I totally respect the position you're in, because I've been there. I was the board chair before we consolidated, and my issue was the school choice thing. So I know you're in a hard spot right now. I also know that you are in a minority spot, too, as far as only being 3 from Raymond compared to the 6. I have some serious concerns about this advisory committee. You were on a committee of 4 last year, I think it was. And I'm going to put it right out there. You and Marge got thrown under the bus by your other 2 Wyndham committee members as far as sending Wyndham kids up here to Raymond. And I still stand by it. If we're a consolidated school unit, then we should be utilizing all the schools that we have and not worrying about a handful of parents that we may upset them. Because you just got done saying that, you know, we have to have our schools respected and want to send our kids to schools and stuff like that. But if the board's not taking a stand and utilizing Jordan Small, you know, and I know you're in the minority. I understand that. You're in a bad spot. I'm looking at this from the Selectmen point of view now, as far as if we lose Jordan Small School, and I'm looking at these options that were on here, and originally in December, 9 options came back. And I noticed in the January minutes, you added on, I think 2 more, 10 and 11 is what it is. And if Raymond loses Jordan Small School, it's gonna affect the people in this town, I believe. I really do, because what families are gonna wanna move to Raymond when we've only got, you know, an RES, a K through 4, K through 5 school. And I think that impacts the Economic Development Task Force as far as bringing businesses into this town, as far as house values, everything like that. A concern I also have too is how far down the road do you guys go? And where we say, okay, we've gone too far, Raymond's going to have to swallow this huge chunk of this cost of a new school that's going to be a middle school, because looking at these options, and I'm really surprised that Portland Design Tech did not come back as saying, let's send some of the kids up to Raymond. That wasn't even one of the options on there. And looking at these, like 6 of these options is sending Jordan Small kids to Wyndham. So I guess when does Raymond get the representation? And I know you've got to look at the whole thing, but when does Raymond get the representation that we need to fight for the Raymond kids and the Raymond parents, and the same thing with the money value? If the taxpayers have to pay that, because that cost that he came back with was Westbrook with the middle school of 900 students was $34 million, and they had the land. And I know you guys are serious about looking for this, because Bill Hansen and Don Davis came up here looking for land opportunities.
Do you want me to respond
Yep,
to
go
any
ahead,
of these
sorry.
things?
Shut me up.
Good
No,
luck.
well, I mean, there's a lot of, you brought up a lot of points, and I'm not really sure where to begin. I will start with a place that I look at it differently. I look at it as what is best for all of our students in the district, and that is where I operate from. As far as filling Jordan Small, it doesn't solve, this is a different issue. That doesn't, filling Jordan Small, first of all, if that theoretical thing had gone through in last year of moving the lines, and it included middle school, we were talking about 46 additional students. It would have brought us to 230 in a school that's built for 350. So that was not solving the underutilization of Jordan Small. I'm trying to think of what else you brought up. You had a lot of things.
Sorry.
I'm over that, moved on.
She knows what I'm talking about, Charlie, on that one.
As far as the whole, getting a say, that has been a big push of, and I will tell you that the committee, nobody on this committee wants to do anything that's going to ruffle anyone's feathers. Perhaps to even the disservice of, the work. So people are very which I think is also good, because we have people representing different kinds of postures, if you will. We have a good balance of what's happening, what people are saying, what they're concerned about on the committee. And I think that having this notion of an advisory referendum, where we can really get this pulse of the community before we put forward an actual plan. So in other words, down the road, you talked about how far down the road are you going to get. This is not something that anyone wants to push through, and we want to figure out what our communities want, and I think that's where Raymond has to do some soul searching right now. I happen to think that there's a case to be made for having a really nice, wonderful, nurturing K through 5 school, and then bringing your kids together in a consolidated middle school where they can make transitions at the 6th grade level, because those are the kids they're going to go to high school for, where they can play the same sports, be on the same teams, have the same opportunities. There's a case to be made for somebody might choose to live in Raymond over Wyndham if that were the case, because the taxes are a little lower in Raymond. So I think these are great conversations to have. I think we need to talk those things through. Or maybe Raymond wants to remain, keep their schools up through 8th grade, a small school system. But I can tell you, you as a town board would be looking at the efficiency of that building right now if we were not a consolidated district.
Yeah, real estate, yeah.
Okay, so this is not an RSU issue. This is an issue at JSMS, at the lack of students there. So, I think we need to look at, from a fiscal perspective, at what point is it not financially viable to continue to run a school whose population continues to dwindle? And at what point are we not able to offer the same opportunities to those kids? That's my concern. And I'm speaking for me personally now. This is total editorial, not speaking for the committee.
This is a huge concern of mine, because I was the last 8th grade to leave Jordan Small, and I went to Westbrook. Should have went to Wyndham. It was the same school except 20 minutes further, and I was not prepared at all. We didn't have any different languages. I mean, the whole changing class thing, I mean, it was, of course, now 30 years ago or so, but still,
it's a concern, and I'm a huge fan, and my daughter's in 7th grade. I love Jordan Small.
So do I.
And at some point, you, just like we, need to look as because now we're 2 entities, but you would be looking at how do we financially continue to afford to educate these kids in the way we want to educate them. And maybe it is moving and having a K-8 school. Or maybe it's looking at an opportunity to consolidate with our district. So that's what I want people just to start thinking about that and having those conversations. This is not about ramming anything down anybody's throats. We've already shown we don't get anywhere in that way. So we need to get people talking about it. So, and I do want to mention something that I just think it was really eye-opening to me when I did some math today. In the 5 years that we've been a consolidated district, Raymond's portion of the school commitment to taxes in dollars has gone up $415,198. That's a 0.05% increase over 5 years each year. The 5 years previous to consolidation, the net increase was 1.3 million. So when I hear people say that consolidation hasn't been good for Raymond, I think we need to look at some of the facts. As far as financially, it has been good for Raymond in a time when we had a major economic downturn. So I just needed to get that out there. Questions? Sorry. Hi.
Katrina, when you look forward, I mean, I know that Raymond's population, school-age population has shrunk,
Flatlined.
and it's projected to shrink a little bit more.
Yeah.
What is the total RSU's projection for students, do you know?
Pretty flat. Pretty flat as far as, the predictions that we got, but as we all know, that those predictions did not hold true for Raymond when RES was built and we thought the community was going to grow. So they are pretty flat from a projection standpoint. I think that this RSU has a great reputation, and in an economy that's still slugging along, I think it's attracting families because it's a more affordable place to live with a good education as compared to some of the wealthier communities in the southern Maine. So I sort of, even though the predictions are flatlined, I think that it could continue to grow a little bit. And I'd like to see Raymond grow as well, not just Wyndham.
Katrina, I was a big supporter of the consolidation. I was on the consolidation committee. And one of the reasons why we've been able to hold the tax line on the school budget is we've lost so many students. And there's a per pupil cost to that increase, that minimal increase we've seen. But here's my concern. We're like number 42 on the list to get
Right.
state funding.
Yep.
You go build a $35 million middle school somewhere, whether it's in Raymond or Wyndham, your debt service is going to be over $2 million a year that comes back on the taxpayers, and Raymond's going to pick up 40 to 45% of that $2 million.
I would have to look at the funding.
That would be 800 to 900,000 just in debt service every year for 30 years. I mean, it just economically doesn't make sense. Because our valuation is so high, we're not that far from Wyndham and their valuation. So that even though we only have 193 kids at this middle school, we'd be picking up a much larger share of that debt service if we go on our own. And that's a real concern.
It's got to be considered in the grand scheme of things.
But when you do this advisory referendum, you're going to go to Wyndham and Raymond. Raymond has 3,000 registered voters.
But it's not, if it's an advisory, I'm sorry to interject.
Yeah.
If it's an advisory referendum, you're not bound to anything. So what it does
Right.
is it advises us that,
That
one
Wyndham's gonna
town is
say-
in favor and one town isn't in favor
Right.
of whatever's on the ballot,
Yep.
and then you make another, you
Hey,
make a
if
different
I
plan.
lived in Wyndham, I would love to have Raymond's taxpayers pick up 40 to 45% of the cost of a new school that's going to be
I'm not
built in
sure that
Wyndham.
it's 40 to 45%.
Oh, it surely is.
yeah.
I think we need to look at that.
You go check your
I
numbers.
will.
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Joe was with me on that consolidation committee when they were doing all the breaking down of how the boards were done up and everything
I
like
will
that.
definitely look at that. I don't,
Yeah, it's based on land valuation.
I understand
We're
that.
$1 billion, Wyndham's 1.6 billion. And they have 4 times our population.
Right.
So, just something to consider. That's my objection, that you go down this path solely funded by the towns. It will never work.
People can't afford it. There's no way.
Well, there's a lot of benefits, but there's a lot of negatives too. And you're seeing a lot of benefits, and you're saying, this is great. Well, you're seeing all the negatives, because there's a lot of them. When it comes down to it, is, the kids being prepared is all of our, main focus. But on the other hand,
well, and people wanting to
they
live
can
in
be
Raymond
prepared in
is
some,
is a
they don't need to be prepared in the
factor.
Taj Mahal either. So.
But,
Mike?
but,
Mike?
oh, sorry.
Sorry.
One of the things comes to mind from this chart is consolidated school or not consolidated school. Something has to be done.
Yep.
So, I understand this committee's looking at a bigger picture,
Yep.
but the school board must also have to look at this list and say, all right, we gotta start chopping these off, because even if the committee comes forward if it's 10 years down the road this is built, 5 years down the road, some of these things can't wait that long.
And some of these things are already in process.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a failure waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So there are gonna be some expenses just in this, aside from,
But as you know, with anything, if you know what your long-term plan is, you know, you may move forward differently with a facility dependent on what you're gonna be doing with it. Does that make, am I being
yeah.
as clear as mud?
Clear as mud.
So in other words, you're not gonna replace a roof if they're gonna get rid of a building type thing.
Correct.
So it's- yeah,
I mean, you
on
make
any
a-
place,
You make a choice.
yes.
So,
Any other questions?
I think my concern is too, is you talk about being ready for school. I mean, my daughter just got done with high school last year, and I still don't see this 5 years as this being a consolidated school unit. I really don't. I think the board, and it's just my personal opinion, I think it's failed in that because I think things that should have been brought together more with the kids. Because Raymond kids don't play with the Wyndham teams. Actually, they're still going to Buckfield and Litchfield and
We're
all
not even in the
these.
same organization.
No, we're not, and we're the
Little
same
League compared to
consolidated
Calvert,
units.
when it
Right,
comes to
and
baseball, we're in-
they
Right.
looked at that,
Absolutely.
just so you know. Because of the size of our town, we can't compete in that league, like, literally, compete in that league. So it's better for our kids in a small school to compete with similar sized schools.
But how does that transition
So,
kids
wait.
into?
Well, and that's my point,
Right.
Teresa. Do you want to stay forever small? You
Well,
know?
that's one of the reasons too, is why,
Yeah.
and this is just personally me, is Raymond for me, but it's also, I want Raymond to be Raymond, and I don't want the things that make the people come here. Alyssa had read something at the economic development, quality of life, and it's different for every people, and, you know, every people, nice
Every
word,
person.
I'm with you.
and to me, it's, I don't know, I think that would take it away, and I don't think Raymond is really having a say in any of these designs as to where their kids are gonna go, because it would put all the kids together in Wyndham, is what it is.
Well, that's, I mean, and I beg to differ. I do want to say two things about the, one, the options that you referred to and the change of how many options there were. That first Lyndon Keck's document, it's a PDT architect document. He was asked to come to present to us and, you know, share his opinions. We did not create that document as a committee.
Right.
So I just want to be clear on that.
No, I believe you.
But what we did use it is a starting, you know, like a place to jump from, a springboard. So that's why you saw it change and morph a little bit, and it'll continue to do that. You know, we are talking about, and you said on the one hand, I know you're thinking of this seriously, you can't make decisions unless you look at what you're really talking about. You can't decide, could we build a consolidated middle school in Raymond on town, you know, a property in Raymond, or could we build a consolidated middle school somewhere unless you know all the facts. Is there even land? You know, and so yeah, you've got to find that out. Does that mean we're going to build one in Raymond? I don't know. We're in a fact-finding phase, and so, you know, I think to jump to the conclusion that we have an answer is, you know, is ludicrous.
No, I don't think you have an answer, but there's a lot of options out there that I don't see Raymond benefiting from, is what I'm saying personally. So and I'm not jumping to conclusions that this is it. I'm saying that I just don't see Raymond coming out of this, especially since we're 42 out of 71 on the list as far as funding goes.
Further questions?
Katrina, I just want to thank you for coming here tonight. I
Yes.
knew it wasn't going to be a pleasant experience for you.
It's my pleasure.
But, you know, just hear our concerns. For me, it's the financial aspect. I want our kids to have a great education. My kids went to Jordan Small, and they went to Wyndham for middle
In
school.
7th grade.
Yeah, I mean, my kids, I think, left in 6th
Right?
grade.
Or 6th grade, yeah.
6th grade, and then they went to Wyndham from 7 through 12.
Right.
You know, they turned out to be pretty normal in spite of the
We'll check
parenting
on
and, but, you know, you have to look at the kids' education first and what is gonna be best for the kids. but the financial impact that decision could have is huge. So,
And that, I hear you loud and clear, and that is absolutely on the forefront of our minds as well. So I appreciate that.
Thanks.
And I do want to just reiterate to the public who's hopefully watching, to have these conversations, because it's so important that people talk about what do we want, because if we don't take initiative, then it will just happen. Something will just happen. So we need to take initiative, have conversations about what's best for our kids, what can we afford, and help be a part of the solution. And I do think Raymond will benefit from that. So talk about it, call me, whatever. I'm there.
Thank you very much, Katrina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good presentation. Next, Community Forest Project request for town sponsorship, Land for Maine Future, LMF grant application. Carrie?
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm going to recuse myself from any questions and comments on this one.
Okay, thanks again. Carrie Wallia from Loon Echo Land Trust. I appreciate you getting this topic on the agenda so quickly. As I outlined in the summary document to you, that the Raymond Community Forest Project proposal has been brought to this board by the Raymond Conservation Commission and Loon Echo Land Trust since August of 2012, and we then developed concepts and project proposals, budgets, timelines that were approved by this board with the understanding that a few more details were to be worked out. But as a part of that budget that was presented, two major sources of funding were on that budget, one being the Land for Maine's Future grant. And I believe Don said the town has had experience in LMF projects before. And so now the time has come where the state is seeking applications for conservation projects that are either local, regional, or statewide. And so we just need to figure out who the applicant is going to be, and I'm asking if the town would be willing to be the primary applicant, with Loon Echo being the supporting applicant. But Loon Echo would do a lot of the research and writing in consultation with the Conservation Commission. The attachment has the inquiry form that is due later this month, and it just has really basic information, so I don't think there'll be any surprises there, but the proposal itself is pretty lengthy and needs a good amount of research and work, and that's due in late March. So I'm here to answer questions and see if you'd be willing to sponsor that application, which does demonstrate that the town is committed to advancing this project through town meetings. Next on the agenda is from the Conservation Commission, a topic of a funding request, and then beyond the funding request, if this project was to receive funding from town, state, and or other sources, we'd be talking about ownership, and the town indicated they may be willing to be the owner and present that to the townspeople at a later town meeting, suggested in 2015. So all these things this grant application would kind of speak to as being the plan. So it's also a way for the town to demonstrate their interest in following through with the plan that has been talked about since 2012 by being the grant applicant.
Questions?
Shocked.
Yeah. Well, maybe a question here, has the town had experience in Land for Maine's Future projects done?
Historically, the town has, yes. The Tasseltop Park, as I understand it, prior to my time, was the first major acquisition for the Land for Maine's Future funds, I'm told, and that was a significant, I think, for the town of Raymond at the time, and probably for the state. I mean, it's kind of a signature property for the town. It was $900,000, I think, for 38 acres on Sebago, is what I'm told. So that was one application, and I believe there has been Land for Maine's Future monies in Morgan Meadow. So those are the ones that I'm aware of. Probably some folks who have a longer reach into the history of Raymond conservation projects would be able to maybe give you some other examples, but those are the two that come to mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mike?
Can you outline again where you think the funds are, I mean, I see it here in the proposal, but, you know, it's a large chunk of change to
Yep.
raise at $570,000, and if you could just briefly outline again where you think some of that money will come from.
Sure, I'm trying to find the budget. Yeah, we went over the last presentation. So in May of 2013, the budget we talked about, 400,000 of the total 571 would come from grants, such as Land for Maine's Future, or the U.S. Forest Service grant, or other small local foundations within, say, like the Carol and David Hancock Charitable Trust. So the majority from grants. Next on the agenda, the town of Raymond may contribute 50,000, and then a local fundraising campaign is estimated to bring in about 120,000. That's a rough figure now. There's a lot of citizens who have come forward and said that they're willing to serve on a fundraising committee, and a lot of interest in the Crescent Lake neighborhoods to contribute. So that's the goal.
The reason I ask, if I can follow up, Sam, when you folks were involved in the project up on the hill, which had
Hackers
a
Hill.
nice view, was it Hackers? Great view, lots of picnic area, you know, known entity, you know, you could wrap your hands around it, right? Tenny River project, you can wrap your hands around, right? I mean, this is a, you know, I'm gonna be blunt, someone's backyard. I know it's a forest. It does get on one parcel fairly high, but it's a woodlot. I mean, how do you excite landowners and grantors to say, yeah, we should preserve this because it's just a woodlot?
That's a great question. That's where I think Raymond, in helping write this application, can kind of speak and make it more of a sexy proposal beyond a woodlot. It has Pismire Mountain, the cliffs and the summit of the mountain. It has two rare plant species and one rare forest community on the mountain. And then the woodlot itself, I believe it's the Conservation Commission's vision to turn that into a hiking and cross-country ski trail network. So it's attracting, more people to use a new recreational resource. So it's creating new recreation, which is a major goal of some of these funders, is to promote public access for recreation. And just preserving forests and working woodlots is very important to the local and state economy in Maine. Protecting those forests and keeping them working is also a very persuasive, argument. Or else they turned into non-working forests and residential subdivisions, which was originally the proposal for this property.
Thank you.
Yes. Did you have a question, Mike? No? Question? Well, are we looking for a motion here?
No, public comment.
Yes. Members of the public, thank you very much, Gary.
I'm Lori Bernier, 69 Hancock Road. And, well, I can say that, of course, all the neighbors, Crescent Woods Association, brought this up at the meeting last summer, and everyone there is behind this. There's definitely people there that will be helping with trails, and I know a lot of people in Raymond that would help with trails. I also, I'm a recreation therapist, and I work with folks that have disabling conditions. Up until just a few months ago, I did this. And I work with them all over Maine and in their communities. So I've been on trails all over Maine because part of what I do with people is get them to do things in their community and do fitness-related activities. And so I see a lot of trails, and I can also tell you from my own personal experience in Raymond that there are less and less trails every year for people to use for mountain biking, cross-country skiing, because people are building houses and whatnot. So to have more land that people in the community can go to and walk on a trail, ski on a trail, I think is definitely beneficial. Thanks.
Thank you. Further comment?
He just pops up.
Oh, slow there, Greg.
Do I need to say anything? Greg Foster, 29 Ledge Hill Road, Raymond. Lori and I were actually classmates, and sorry to say, Lori, I just I don't think the town needs to own any more land. I think they have plenty, and I just don't agree with, again, taking public money and buying land and taking it off the tax rolls. If that's the case, maybe it's not in this case, but there are a lot of very gracious private property owners. They grow forests, they do a lot of good things, and you really got a lot of that free for nothing right now. And I have 20 acres. You're welcome to come walk on that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm very opinionated about forest property. I very much have a lot of faith in individuals who own and manage property, and I just prefer to see it stay in private ownership. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Any other public comment? We're looking for a motion here. Yes.
Comment. I'm due up next anyway, but
Might as well just stay there.
I understand Greg's point, and I don't disagree with it necessarily, but I've also watched the property that's in discussion. It's getting chunked away in small pieces, being created, turned into house lots, and I think we have an opportunity here to try to preserve some land in the forested state. I think if we miss this opportunity, we'll probably just see more house lots, and we're going to lose that forest land eventually anyway. And it's not going to be because of anybody's maliciousness or intent to destroy forest land. It's just going to happen because it's going to get turned into house lots, and it already has. There are some that have been taken out of that the overall lot that's there currently. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Charlie, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. A couple things I would just like to add to the discussion is I understand Greg's concerned about the loss of private property rights. So when we do calculations, and I know Loon Echo did the best it could, and I'm sure the Conservation Commission did, but Hancock Lumber cut over that land. There won't be any viable timber resources coming on off that land for probably about 10 years. They speculate that will be around $23,000 over a 10-year period. And they've suggested that will make up the economic dynamic of that income over that 10-year period of time will make up for what we would have lost by it being in tree growth as a credit. When you do that calculation, though, you have to also look at the other side of the calculation for development. If you had, I believe the first original development by Hancock was 83 house lots, 13 and 70, so it was 83. So some in-between variable. It's not the sky is falling that there's going to be 83 house sites over there, but what we do when we take that land out, you have to do the economic calculation. We'll also bring in more kids to the school, might solve one other problem, might make land values go up in Raymond. So when we come out with data, when we're using economic data and we're using just one model, That's somewhat not the best picture we could use and say, well, in 20 years' time, because that's what it would be, we'll generate $23,000 in income that will pay off for the lack of losing that money from tree growth, whereas 4 or 5 house sites would probably generate that same amount of money. That's one. And one of the other questions, and it came up on the Tenny River project, was the use of public funds for private. And this is different because it would be owned and operated by the town of Raymond, so you also have those particular costs to worry about: postings, maintenance, oversight and control and liability. And so one way I see, and I think in this world of such a divergence between those who have more of the ability to give and be charitable, that the first thing and foremost we should be doing is asking the Hancock Land Company, would they appeal to the Hancock Charitable Trust and just eliminate the $50,000 cost, because that will be the next article that you'll discuss tonight, and I won't get into that now, but we're asking for $20,000 from open space and a $30,000 appropriation from the town on top of. So now we've spent down $35,000 of open space, probably great. If you end up with almost all the Tenny River, and there's more to that discussion, actually there's 2 more lots to be discussed about the Tenny River, so that's ongoing when you're looking at protection and what the potential costs are of purchasing this 372 acres or whatever it is. They have given, to their credit, they've given a $200 per acre discount from the appraised value, which was at $1,600 versus $1,400 an acre. But I would appeal to the Hancock Charitable Trust to take the town of Raymond, give something back. Obviously, there's some great ideas as to what to do with this land that maybe adds to the public trust. It adds to the community values of this town without us having to actually invest in it. So again, similar to the school options plan, this is the professional way that long-term planning is done. You seek information, you seek input, you take the information from meetings like this, you look at all the models. You have to read the studies, you have to read the information before you make decisions. This has been an ongoing issue now. The community forest concept for Pismire has been out there for a while. So I'm sure I'm running over my 3 minutes, which I didn't see the clock on anyone else, but I'll leave it at that. There's also the next article that will be coming up to discuss the warrant article. And I had a sense that this warrant article for funding was going to come to this town meeting, not in 2015. So it would be, so we're dealing with this pretty much on the fly as it is. And I just caution you to be careful as you make these decisions, and also look at all the other options that we could pursue to maybe this be truly revenue neutral for the town. Thank you.
Can I just make a comment? I appreciate his approach that maybe more research needs to be done, and I can work with John Rand to try to summarize what if this land were to become house lots as originally proposed, how much potential expense that would incur to the town versus the property taxes that would come in. Residential development tends to cost much more than what it brings in. We can also look at other things like water quality protection. Another big component of this project is forests are the best filter to protect water quality. So if you look at protecting the forest versus building it, how would that impact the water quality of the town, which also impacts property tax value? So maybe we can come up with some kind of generic scenarios to answer some of the questions where it's not just looking at a 10-year forecast for timber revenue, which I believe Greg was so nice to help with. So maybe we can come up with a few basic models.
We would look forward to that.
Can I just get clarification?
Yes.
Okay. The one that we're looking at right now is the draft warrant article language from the Raymond Conservation Commission. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Land from Maine.
You're looking at the same thing.
We're not to that article
Thank you,
yet.
Katrina.
Oh.
That's the one before.
That's the next article.
I need to keep my mouth shut.
This is whether we would sponsor an application.
Right. It's two different,
Okay. No, I just,
Sponsor a grant application for the land.
the next one's the warrant article. Okay, thank you.
but I am reading it.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, you have it up too in yours.
Or shall we leave it with
Karen?
Huh?
I think because of the timelines, they need to have a decision on whether we're willing to do that or not.
So the question here is sponsorship of the grant applications. Correct. So I would, are we in discussion phase? Is that where we are now?
Is it still?
We need a motion, then we'll discuss.
All right. I would make a motion that Town of Raymond sponsor the grant application for the Raymond Community Forest.
Second.
Now we in discussion?
Yes, we're in discussion now. Mike?
If the town were to approve this, I think it should be owned by us. I think in that part of the questions we did have answered were hopefully as Charlie pointed out, hopefully that the harvesting of this forest would pay the current level of taxes, but would not increase going forward.
It would not
as-
going forward.
If there were house lots. So, there's a lot of questions here. I think the amount of money that's being charged for this property and for what the property is, I think it's gonna be difficult to raise the funds for personally. I don't mean to be, but I just think it's not as special as those other two properties I mentioned earlier. And I'm not, I understand the local residents, it's a big deal. But I think once you get out of those neighborhoods, I think it's gonna be hard to raise private funds, personally. But I do think if this goes forward, we ought to be the sponsors, we ought to be the owners. So,
Further comment, questions? Could we? Yes.
So if we were to go that route, like, and, because we're already going to have to maintain it on our dime? That's what I heard earlier.
maintain it would be a decision we would make as to what that means.
Meaning if we owned it, we would maintain it.
Meaning if we owned it, we could do nothing with it if we chose.
Right, but we would also get the proceeds
From the harvest, so it would literally be a tree growth lot that the town would own. And we could do nothing with trails, we could allow people to do nothing with trails, but it would keep development out of that area, and it would be a small Morgan Meadow.
There would be no, or very little ROI on that, though.
It's a choice. I mean, what they're proposing, if we owned it, I mean, it's still gonna be up to the town to decide what to do with it. If we owned it, how much development there would be, how much maintenance there would be.
What was the total cost?
$570,000.
The purchase price is 506, and then all the other costs are estimated, transaction, legal costs. So, and just to remind you that if this was to succeed, and this is the test year in 2014, we're gonna see how much can be raised through these grants and the town appropriation. And then if at the end of the year, it looks like the majority of the funds are committed, we'd together, move forward to commit to buying it from Hancock. But this LMF grant would kind of spell out your intentions to create recreational trails and to do these things. So LMF is going to score you based on what you say. So you kind of have to develop the vision and some of the basic plan now and try not to change that as much as possible. I know that there's some things that town government has to decide later on through town meeting. So this is really setting that vision, which has been talked about kind of in more stone to appeal at a state level. And then Loon Echo would hold a conservation easement, so then we'd have to work out even further fine detail together as partners and put that into a legal document that would speak to the conservation and recreation purposes of the project.
Move second. Any other comments? Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails.
That's too quick.
Moving Yes. Moving on to the next, the warrant article, it is getting a little warmer. The warrant article, we discussed, consideration approval of warrant article language for community forest project. John Rand was going to comment on that, or going to present on that. I don't see John.
John was unable to make it tonight, and he had arranged with Bill Frazier to come, and Bill wasn't available, so I'm the pinch hitter for the pinch hitter. But in lieu of the previous vote, I don't know whether it's appropriate to go forward with this discussion.
I guess it would be about the same as the discussion for the previous. What do you think, Joe? You can't think.
I can't think
Sam?
right now.
Can't think. Mike?
My take on the previous vote is that it was not to have the town sponsor the application.
That's correct.
Doesn't mean somebody else can't sponsor the application. It may make the next warrant, the next item on the agenda harder to discuss because you don't have a sponsor at this point.
That's correct.
What I think it does is throws the timeline totally off. The reason I'm not ready yet is I just think there are too many questions to be answered between now and June. And so from my standpoint, the reason I voted no now is it's huge. It's a big project. You're gonna have to answer all those questions prior to a June town meeting. I don't think there's time.
I agree with that, and I also think there are too many numbers questions in there that are not gonna be answered to our satisfaction, or can't be.
I mean, it's February.
Yeah.
And, you know, that may throw it off with the landowner, but, I mean, the housing development already failed. We know what's going on in that neck of the woods. I think if it's another year or another amendment to the original agreement, they might or might not be able to make, but I just think we need more information,
Yep.
and more citizen information than doing this in February, so.
Can I speak?
Yes, of course, Karen.
No, go right ahead.
Well, this seems to just be a reverse of 180 from the last couple of presentations where you voted unanimously in favor of the project, and we thought we answered as many questions as we could, and you understand we were going to come forward with a $50,000 request for this warrant. And now the warrant article language is being presented, so I just don't understand what questions weren't being answered when we came forward twice, LUNECO and the Raymond Conservation Commission, to answer your questions, and you felt satisfied at that time.
I don't know that we felt satisfied. In my
You voted,
recollection was that there were still questions to be answered.
we came back with the budget and the timeline that you requested and all the questions we answered at that time, and you voted unanimously with one abstention to support the project moving forward, allowing LUNECO to go under legal contract to acquire the property on your behalf, and which we did, and spent considerable funds to do so, to put the property under contract with a deposit, knowing that you supported it and knew that this was going to come forward. So I just don't know what hasn't been answered, because you seemed satisfied the last time with the concept. It is all in concept proposal now. There will be a fact sheet developed, a budget, a map for town meeting. What this is really saying at town meeting is the town willing to commit $50,000, knowing that another $450 some odd thousand will be contributed by other sources to make this project work. So we're trying to get as many commitments at this point in time, and then in 2015, so if the town votes in 2014 to support $50,000, you don't expend that money right away. We then wait till the end of the year and see how much money has been raised from state, federal, local sources. If it looks like it's going to happen, then all the details get worked out and presented at 2015 town meeting, and the town can see exactly what the master plan is. And they haven't spent a dollar. They've just voted to contribute $50,000, and then we'll vote in 2015 on all the detail. It's too early to have all the detail, everything worked out, but I felt we did answer your questions the last time we were here, and you voted unanimously in favor of the concept project.
In favor of the concept of my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection was that it was a what if, kind of subjunctive thing, if we got answers to the questions, and I don't even recall what the questions were now, then we would do it based on that.
And that, the
With that,
question,
those being the conditions.
and the questions you had were about the loss of tax revenue, and that's when the forestry projections were created. You wanted to know the budget, that's when the budget was created. And those were the main questions you had about the project, and that's, I have the proposal right here from the last time, and you could probably look up what the vote was.
Yeah, we have
And
it
then
right
I said, your vote is giving Luneco the confidence to go put this under contract with Hancock, and they're tying up their property now and have since June, based on the understanding that the town was in favor of this project, at least the major concept, and would move it forward through town meeting. So I think it could be a real blow to Hancock and to Luneco, who's trying to work in collaboration with the town to have it reversed when nothing's been asked of the groups since the last meeting to respond to anything. We felt like we answered your questions.
How does the board feel? Based on what Carrie just, I guess, reminded me of, it seems to me that we could still move it forward to the town meeting.
Sam, I don't think that our vote not to sponsor the application precludes this discussion on the warrant article. I think it makes it harder for them because they need a sponsor. But I don't think it precludes the discussion or sending the warrant article to the town meeting. I don't think one.
That being said, well, let's have a motion on that.
I guess after having 2 minutes to kind of digest what happened in the previous event, do you all have copies of the warrant article as submitted by John? And is that clear? And I don't know if there's anything more that we can add in terms of proposing this to the board to push it on to the, as an article for the town meeting.
Would you mind reading it?
I certainly can read it if you'd like me to. So here's the draft warrant language. Article, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $30,000 from the open space fund and an additional $20,000 from the general fund for a total of $50,000 toward the purchase of 347 acres along Coneska Road and including Pismire Mountain, known as the Community Forest, the Raymond Community Forest. Expenditure of these funds will be contingent on successful award of grant applications to the U.S. Forest Service and the Land for Maine's Future program, and additional private fundraising. The town will have until December 31st, 2015 to raise the needed funds and to exercise an option to buy the land from Hancock Land Company. A summary of the project funding is as follows. Total cost equals $570,000. Land for Maine Futures grant, $200,000. U.S. Forest Service grant, $100,000. Raymond, $50,000, and required private funding and other grants, $220,000.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would add one difference. My article says December 31st, 2014, and that was what was outlined in our packet that you would. This would authorize, would have until the 14th to create enough funding to say it's moving forward.
I corrected that actual, John Rand presented that, and I did make the correction.
Which we have 14 in ours. So I just, you read what you have.
That's right.
Ours says 14, yours
Okay, and
says
I think,
15.
Danielle was copied on this version of it, but it wasn't sent out until the 6th of February. So I'm not sure if it got to you folks or not.
So it's still 2014 based on the timeline to make a decision whether it goes forward.
That's when we have to exercise the agreement.
Correct.
End of 2014.
So this needs to say 14. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the ability in the agreement to know that that money was committed.
Right.
Further. Yes, Charlie.
Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. Just a clarification, when I speak about process and being careful, that doesn't speak against the project. To be quite honest with this board, as I always am with the public, they might say if this was a movie, we don't need no stinking survey to know that the people in the town of Raymond would value preserving that 347 acres, as they will be interested in preserving as best they can in a private sector economy, the Tenney River, as they object to paving over the shoreland zone for an industrial parking lot. So you can spend, on another article coming up, Mr. Reynolds is suggesting that we take some of the timber lot money that we're going to get from good management practice, the reason why we have a AAA bond rating, of not letting an asset sit. We've taken that land, we've turned it into cash value for the town of Raymond. Greg, we're hoping it will be $53,000. Rather than taking that money and saying, and I know Dana will be turning over, you might hear some squealing brakes here shortly, but you take that money from one wood lot and you put it into another. No one's saying it's a bad deal. What I'm saying is I think you pursue Hancock Lumber a little bit more with the knowledge that this is a tough economy for everyone. It's a tough economy for building houses for them. It's a tough economy for selling land. And it's a good economy for a smart sense of how you manage your assets. So we take one asset from a woodlot, no offense to the community survey concept, but if that's 30,000, I'd rather see that 30,000 coming in a warrant article that says we're taking 20,000 out of open space, which is still taxpayer money. I disagree. It's taxpayer money, but it's already pre-funded, pre-loaded taxpayer money, and 30,000 from the 53,000 woodlot, and we still come up with not asking the town for any more money and using one asset to offset another, which is just a good idea. So I just wanted to clarify my thinking on that, as opposed to making it seem like, because I agree with Loon Echo Trust on this. It is a 180-degree turn from one meeting to the next, and so I'm myself grasping for some of the rationale behind that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I make a motion, we send the warrant article for the Raymond Conservation Committee to town meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Done. Thank you, Carrie, for illuminating.
Danielle, I abstain.
Okay. Discussion and consideration of warrant article regarding timber harvest revenue. Mike Reynolds?
I'm not sure this is an actual warrant article, a budget item, but it's a discussion. After we had the presentation a couple months back on the revenues we were going to receive from the harvest of our town properties for timber, I thought of that just going into the general fund. We had a discussion recently about our possibly having a survey in town, and those two ideas kind of came together, and it may be semantics, what I wanted to discuss here, but if we're going to have revenue in the, $45,000 to $60,000 range from timber harvest, and we don't have money currently to pay for a survey, and I thought if we could talk about and the idea of, if we do want to have a survey and it comes up in our budget, that we put how we're going to pay for that survey as part of the budget. And we would use revenues which will come in this year. Yes, they will go to the general fund, but it would be a way to say this survey is a one-time cost. The revenue from this timber harvest is a one-time in the next 20, 30 years revenue stream. So we would just say part of the reason we're taking money out of the undesignated fund balance is because we received money from the timber harvest to pay for the survey. So that we don't raise taxes to pay for the survey, we use income that we received to pay for the survey. Kind of a one-time, we've talked about some of the other one-time expenses that we have used from the sale, for instance, of the cell tower easement. We did some investments, some one-time investments with a lot of those funds. So I saw it as the same way. I wanted to bring it up today as consideration, maybe help give Don some direction as he develops the final parts of the budget here in the next few weeks. And then I was talking about what do we do with the rest? You know, it comes from land we own, as Charlie mentioned, and do we put it back into land we might possibly own? So do we put it into open space fund? Or do we put money from the land back into conserving the land? Do we put it towards milfoil? Do we put it towards a community forest? You know, is that where, you know, possibly the 20,000 in the general fund comes from timber harvest? And again, using the explanation that if this is a one-time, we would say, you know, we're not raising taxes, we're pulling it out of undesignated fund balance as a one-time use. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. That's why I asked Sam to put this on the agenda tonight, just to have a discussion about it, to see what other members thought. So.
I think a lot depends on when this money comes in. Is it gonna come in after June, you know, in the next fiscal year? I mean, do we have any idea when this money's gonna come in, Greg?
It'll be after June.
After June. You know, occasionally Mr. Levitt has really good ideas. And,
Bruce, pull out the hot runners.
I did say occasionally, but,
That's not
his idea is perfect. You take that timber harvest money on your last vote that I abstained from, to ask for 30,000 out of the general fund for a land purchase, to me,
It's 30 from open space, 20 from
from-
general,
yeah.
in the article.
it is?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
changed it then.
It's, yeah.
My article in front of me here says 30 open space, 20 general.
It's,
Is that it?
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah,
it
it's-
was 20 and 30.
The
No,
one,
it's
the one we
separate
just
from-
approved,
Yeah,
the ones we're sending to town meeting that we just approved is 30 and 20 in my
that came to me in just the last few days, okay? Well, I was gonna make a comment on the overall likely proceeds of the sale versus what I understand to be the dollars that are in play here. I think,
So it has been reversed, so they're asking for 20 from the general fund.
Correct.
that's what I understand, yeah.
So why wouldn't you take that timber harvest money and take 20 of it
put it back in.
and put it into that $50,000?
Correct.
Well, that makes so much sense to me. And if you're gonna do a survey, if you are gonna get 55,000, first of all, I don't think you're gonna spend 30,000 on a survey.
No.
That's just me. But it makes perfect sense that it goes into that money. And so, you just sent an article to the town meeting that you're gonna take 20,000 out of the general fund when you had an option in front of you not to do that.
It's the order in which the discussion happened, Joe. And again, I'll go back to semantics. Is it semantics as to the money that we receive from the timber harvest is going to go into the general fund? So,
But unless you designate it for where it's going.
I think you could fix the problem that you created in the last vote with this particular action. The point I wanted to make is I think there's gonna be ample money from the sale of the timber to do both things, and have money left over.
Yeah, I agree with that.
right, yeah, we're not gonna spend 30,000 on a survey. So Teresa asked, how do you fix it?
Make a motion.
Well, let's keep discussing here.
Right, before we jump to conclusions again. Well, if we give them 20, they may use 20. So if you give them 5, then they'll only use 5. So,
I'm just saying, you shouldn't take any, we are gonna have a tight budget as it is moving forward. You know, taking 20,000 out of the general fund for this land purchase means you're gonna cut somewhere else.
That's why I ask if it's semantics, Joe. I mean, in terms of my presentation on how it's worded. Timber harvest goes into the general fund. We have a warrant article that says we're taking 20 out of the general fund that got into the general fund by the timber harvest. So
You're gonna put 20 or whatever you decide, into the revenues from the sale of the timber, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna spend 20 or whatever you decide, I guess it's 20, right?
Mhm.
From the general fund.
That-
Where's the issue?
That's why I'm saying,
I
is
would
it just
say-
semantics?
You could go, yeah, the cleanest way to do this is to go back and revisit the last article. Amend the
I
motion.
mean, is that necessary? I don't think.
Well, then, you're actually gonna confuse it more because you're gonna
Right.
have two separate warrants.
So if we did that, you would spell out the fact that the 20,000 comes from
From that
the
timber
timber harvest.
Which I think is best, to spell it out and not make
Yep.
them confused.
And I don't think
because a lot of people are confused by the questions and how we state them. So if we can state them very
Yeah,
basic.
Let's have a motion to change the
Well, you have to,
wording.
first of all, you have to have a motion to reconsider.
Rescind, yeah, to reconsider.
So having voted on the prevailing side, one of you would reconsider the
Well,
motion.
Let me ask this, with everybody that just left, going for that, they won't have a problem with this, because we're just switching where the
That's all,
20,000's
that's all.
coming from, that's all it is.
Okay,
Done.
let's have a motion. Yes.
They don't care about that. They
want
just
the
care about the
20,000.
money.
So,
Okay.
we need a motion to reconsider the warrant article, for the community project,
Community forest project.
community forest project.
Second.
Having voted on the prevailing side, I make a motion to reconsider.
Okay.
That's what you have to say. He can't
That's
say
what
that.
Oh, you can't, oh, I make a motion to, what?
As a member of the prevailing side.
As a member of the
Prevailing
prevailing
side,
side,
I make
I make a motion to reconsider, oh my God, I quit.
no, that's all good, buddy.
I make a motion to reconsider
The previous action.
the previous action. Okay, on the
Whereby-
warrant, whereby?
Yeah, whereby
Okay, whereby?
we voted to,
We voted to take the 20,000 from the timber, right?
no,
From the,
From the general.
from the
Okay.
general fund.
I don't want to make this motion anymore.
No, you're
You're
going,
doing good.
you're going,
You're
you're going.
almost done.
I want somebody to read this back.
From the general fund.
From the general fund
And replace it with
And
tree
re-
harvest funds.
and replace it with tree harvest funds.
There you go.
There you go. Daniel, you got all that motion?
Now you need a second.
Second.
Call that a Greek heart, Greek
Oh my God, that was so bad.
You learned a second. All in favor?
Thank you.
In other words, we want to take 20,000, put it there from there.
And
Did
then
you
put
abstain
the-
from
then
that one
take-
too, Joe?
I'm yeah, I'm abstention.
He was simply opposed.
All right, next.
What about did we cover the survey?
Well,
So
that,
you want- yeah.
How can we-
you would make that part of your budget presentation.
No.
Right.
Whether or not we're gonna proceed with a survey, and what
Okay.
the cost is,
And where I get the money from?
and where you get the money from.
All right, okay, yeah.
Next item, consideration of memorandum of understanding with the Raymond Village Library. Mike Reynolds again. However,
I'm gonna turn it over to the library to start.
She looks like she's ready.
You know how prepared I
I know you're ready.
am. Norma Richard, 2 Annika Road, and I'm a board member of the Raymond Village Library. And we're here to ask the select board to consider a memorandum of understanding with the library. We have a long history of support, of town support, and a very good relationship with the town of Raymond. And I will tell you that many of both our year-round and summer residents think that we are a town department. In fact, I think we have board members who have thought in the past that we were a town department. For at least 10 years, the library board has looked at, is there a need for organizational structure with the library? They studied this in 2007, they studied this in 2002, and we're looking at this again. We're looking at, do we need a change in organizational status to be able to support the work of the library? and whether the town should be, the library should be a town department. And what we have found is that we think that the best alternative to the library would be to remain a 501c3 and develop a more formal relationship with the town in a higher level of support through an MOU. And what this would mean would that the library would be able to continue raising funds for operational expenses and salaries. We raise approximately 52% of our funding. That the MOU would provide us with some support and long-term stability. And we're asking for this not because the library is in danger. We struggle, I mean, as we're listening to all of this fundraising tonight, I mean, we're looking at, you know, these fundraising pots out there seem to be getting spread and can be fairly thin, and our efforts for fundraising certainly take a lot of time. But we feel that we're in a very vibrant state of growth at the library. Automation is now online. We have our access to resources are expanding. Our programming is increasing. Participation in programming has increased significantly over the past year. And what we're looking forward is meeting the future needs of our community and having a stronger relationship in order to be able to do that. We receive a lot of in-kind services from the town and have for a number of years, but we want to formalize that relationship to make sure that we have that stability. We would like, one of the things that would be a great benefit to the library would be to have operational and management support. And I think Marie would agree that even just doing payroll, the ability for the town to assume responsibility for our payroll would be a significant benefit to the library. What we find our biggest resource is our human resource in terms of our staff, our board, and our volunteers. And if the town could assist us in some of those operational parts of our work, it would allow us more of our time to be able to put into really meeting the mission of the library. We're also looking for ways that we can communicate more closely between the library and town, expanding the work that our library director is doing with the town manager and with other department heads. We're also looking at, are there cost savings for the library through joint purchases such as supply services or insurance. This is what we're asking from the town, but we're also looking at what can the library do for our community.
Elisa Gifford, 546 Webbs Mills Road. I'm also trustee of the Raymond Village Library, and I hope you all notice that our librarian is here this evening after a very long day. Norma has sort of touched on some of the reasons why we feel the town and the library should enter into this MOU. And we also feel that, as she mentioned, a more formal manner is, the time is right for something like that, because the library is undergoing such rapid growth at this time in its history. We also feel that at this time there are unnecessary and extraneous restraints that are now being absorbed by our director in some of the administrative and operational areas that might well be assumed by the town. As you know, we have a respected, experienced, professional librarian as our director. Because Raymond Village Library is experiencing such rapid growth and change, we feel we need to support and enable our director to focus on areas of importance to the library's growth. Areas such as networking with state and local librarians. Recently, Sally has been able to acquire what we call van service for the library, free for a year. What that means is that interlibrary loan will now be delivered and picked up on a regular basis. Sally doesn't have to run around in her car to local libraries to pick up books and return them, or to receive them through the mail at the cost of $3 per item per patron. We also feel that we need to focus on enabling her to do research and secure grants. Of course, this past year, she was able to get the Stephen and Tabitha King grant in the amount of $10,000. That's only a one-time, as I understand. We can't apply for it, reapply this year. But it did enable technical upgrades, such as 2 more public access computers that have boosted computer use since the October report, at least 70% in the last 4 months. We also feel that Sally should be focusing on, as she has been, researching programming opportunities. And as you recall in the October report, the programming is up 300% over last year, and it is steadily increasing since then. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, there were 2 programs at the library that attracted 45 people. That same day, there were 208 books circulated as opposed to 89 the same day last year. And there were 125 visits, patron visits, as opposed to 79 the same day last year. And if you recall, on Sunday, the library is only open from 10 to 5. We also feel that focusing on providing needed and requested services to and for the community, thus keeping the library in an active and dynamic stage of growth. I would invite you all to visit the library's Facebook page, where you'll see that there's a lot going on all the time at the library, particularly I think in the area of children's programming, the story times both Mondays and Wednesdays. If you drive by the parking lot, it's full. So how does the town benefit from this MOU? For the reasons I've just mentioned, a dynamic library is motivation for families and businesses to consider locating here in Raymond, because response to community needs through library programming and services augments and enhances the town's image and marketability. We look forward to your favorable consideration of our request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
Any questions?
I've been the select board's representative to the library now for almost a year and a half, maybe, I don't know, somewhere in that range. Prior to that, I was a volunteer and part of the group that was helping to automate the process down there. And part of my education here on the board has been Don telling me about talking with the board some 10 years ago and actually getting very close to this type of agreement 10 years ago, but at that point the library board decided not yet. So it's kind of been tossed around, as they said. And so when I have been talking at their board meetings, it has been kind of, well, how can the town help? You know, you heard a couple examples about, you know, if they could do payroll, run it through our payroll system. These are things that the town should be able to do for the library that shouldn't cost the town extra money. Don will have to speak to this, but we won't have to hire more employees. It should be able to be done in the same breath. So that's why trying to formalize this relationship through something like this has come to be. Don and I have met with the board a couple of times. We last met with the library group last week and was able to get this off to our attorney for comment to see how we could achieve these goals through this type of understanding. We did get a note back very late in the day. It was put at your seats from our lawyer. So some of this stuff will come as a surprise to the library, what I'm about to say. Okay? So there are recommendations from our legal advice that this couldn't be a memorandum of understanding. It would have to actually be an agreement. If we are going to proceed with being able to look at insurances, and you know, if we add the building, for instance, to our insurance, and for you folks it costs you $500 a year for insurance, but the increase to our group is only $200, you would pay us $200. So So the lawyer was looking with those things in mind to make sure that this document covered that. So one of the things that's happened in her opinion is we do need to go back and look at this agreement. And there's going to have to be more definition in paragraphs 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in order to better spell out what the agreement actually is. I'll give you a copy of this when we're done. You don't have to write it down. So, and then we also have to add indemnification language in here because it is a third party, not a town department. Okay, so again, to make sure that this works for what we're trying to accomplish. I don't see anything on here as earth shaking. I was glad actually to get it before this meeting tonight. So based on the way I read this, and I'll look to the rest of the board, we could go ahead as a board tonight and start this preliminarily with the understanding that all of these things still have to be finalized. Okay, so that's where I'll end it, Don. I don't know if you've got a little history, and then I'll give it back to Sam.
No, I think you covered it. These discussions have been going for a long time. I've been trying to be supportive. The town has been supportive, I think, over a long period of time. Will continue to do so, regardless of whether this goes or not. I think to codify, to formalize, however you want to look at it, to put in writing what the actual responsibilities are of the town and the library would be a good thing. The one thing that is pointed out, I think, by Shauna that you didn't cover is that, that you could take a vote tonight to authorize me to begin the corrective actions that she's suggesting, and then I guess bring that back for a final ratification of some kind, but or authorize me to do that under the terms of what this letter outlines. Your choice, I guess. But I'm confident we could do that and get that done in short order if that's the direction you want to take.
Yes, sir. Well, I hate being a skunk at the garden party here. This is not workable. And I applaud the library for trying to save money here. But if you're going to do it for the library, you're going to do it for the Raymond Waterways Protective Association Executive Director, the Crescent Lake Waterways. Who's the next nonprofit you're going to allow to buy in on this deal? You have to think longer term than one entity here. So any nonprofit that approaches us and says, we want you to buy the insurance, we want to take care of your health insurance, we want your retirement plan, how are you going to turn them down? What precedent are you going to turn them down under? Because the library, while it says Raymond Village Library, is not a town entity. And insurance companies won't let the town insure them because they are not a town entity. They're not your employees. And I know this because I tried to do this in the business world. And they don't allow it because you don't own them. So I just think we're going down the wrong path here. I mean, there are other ways to support the library. Maybe it's through more funding, but until they become part of the town, you have a legal obligation as a town. But
Joe, we do have examples of this exact thing working in Scarborough, and they are covered through insurance. This type of agreement does work. There's lots of examples, which is what the library used as an outline for this, that it is allowed in this circumstance, that basically the library retains its 501c3 and it is the fundraising entity. It runs the budget. It is responsible for everything. So they would still come to the town and town meeting request funds for their, like they always do. Then those funds would be given to them. They manage all their funds. But there are lots of examples of how this does work, and insurance companies do it, and the payroll, and so we have the examples. So I beg to differ on, it may not work in the private sector, but it does seem to work in the public sector when it refers to a library.
well, I would definitely get an opinion from our insurance company to make sure we can do this going forward. How do you address the fact that there are other nonprofits in Raymond that may want to tie in?
That will
That will, yeah.
because they'll want the benefits of it. I think this is a good outline for this, but there's a lot of questions that I think need to be answered and addressed on it. So, is there a way that we can get, like, all this language done up that we need to do, get more information back from the attorney and the insurance company?
Yes, that would be the
Oh,
way to
sure.
go.
I mean, yeah, we don't need to enter into this tonight. I mean, that this is a,
Well, I don't want
Don't deal with it.
right, but get all of it and bring it back to us again. You know, with more stuff filled in, and then we maybe, and see what the insurance company says, and see how it breaks down. But we also have to consider that there is more things in town that this may come. Does this?
but on the flip side of that, I think one of the ways you talk about the other groups that you would have to consider, and is who is all-inclusive? You know, a waterways association would not benefit every citizen in town. The library does. Right? It benefits a lot of citizens in town, absolutely. I do think you can draw a line pretty easily and say the library is all-inclusive, available to everybody.
Well,
Do we know of anything like the Waterways Association that has attempted to do this? The library seems to me the logical way to go, as long as we can get these questions answered. And I don't necessarily think that the next thing we can expect, the next explosion we can expect would be one of the other nonprofits. coming here. It's just
Well,
a
that's
very
one of the
natural
pieces,
thing.
but another piece is that if you do it for one town employee, you do it for others, which means whoever is on payroll for the town or for the Raymond Village Library will get benefits,
But the library will have to
exact
pay,
same
the
thing.
library will have to pay for those. So we would pay for none of
But
the.
you couldn't say no
No, the
to
library
them.
would.
If
To
you
who?
if you allow it for the, for any town employee, then you have to allow it for the
No, no.
It
village
would not
library
become a
employee.
town employee.
No.
The library and the staff there would not become town employees.
So it's a
That's specifically,
pass-through in a lot of ways.
it's specifically spelled out, Lonnie, in one of those, that they are not town employees.
Yeah, but, and the way I'm reading, I'm kind of reading both. They says shall process payroll and other personnel benefits. And then I'm reading down a little bit further that says that the town shall be responsible for maintenance and repair of the library building. So do we own that?
Yeah, these are,
It's, I understand the wanting to say
Right,
the
do it anyway.
501c. I understand that, but it's almost kind of like getting
So let me answer the first one
the
about
benefits.
the benefits.
Right.
The town would process the benefits. So it would process,
It'd be the administrator.
be the administrator.
But
The
the-
library would then reimburse the town for the full cost of that.
Okay, so it's not coming out of the town's budget,
That's
it's coming
correct.
out of the
That's
library's
That's
budget,
correct.
okay?
The other-
On top of admin time.
Of which the town gives a contribution.
But approved
You guys get the
separately.
benefit from the lower thing. Does that,
Go ahead.
okay, now, as far as the benefits go, are we in a package as far as the town goes, that it kicks us up to another level as far as employees go, that we have to pay? And I don't know how that works.
that's the point I was,
Okay,
if I can,
go ahead, yeah, it's,
Go ahead.
okay, the library continues to retain the setting of salaries and benefits and all of that piece of the equation. It wouldn't follow that because we did the administration of the payroll, that they would be eligible employees of the library for the benefits and programs of a town employee. That said, the agreement outlines that the trustees are going to attempt to be competitive with other like positions, but that's something that's within their entire span of control. It doesn't fall under our personnel policy, correct? Okay. What is the payroll processor for that?
I would also add, as an example, Tasseltop currently has this arrangement with the town. The town processes their payroll, and right, the Tasseltop is an enterprise fund of the town, so the town does a lot of administrative work for Tasseltop. Tasseltop then in turn pays for all that. Okay, so they maintain a separate budget, but the town helps. So this is not a unique situation that we're trying to formalize here. I do understand the concerns of where do you draw the line, but it,
Because they want to remain independent, but also want that assistance, which
But
that's a good thing
Tasseltop
for it.
raises their own revenue.
they raise
Yeah, but-
100% of their own revenue.
You guys do.
If, give me another example, if the library became a town department, they couldn't get grants,
Right.
because if they were
would have to pay for
wholly,
everything.
That's why they have to remain a 501.
so they need to remain independent in that manner to raise their own funds from grants that are library specific.
And this doesn't affect them by getting benefits at all
No.
from it, as far as
No, not
501c?
at all.
Okay.
I don't want to talk too much because I have somewhat of a connection with one of them.
This is not,
Okay.
this is not, I mean,
Okay.
this is not a very uncommon thing. This is,
It is not,
This is
no.
a common thing, but there are very, very many different structures, though. I mean, you can go across the state and see the full gamut of, completely endowed private libraries, separate and distinct from towns. To the other end of the spectrum is, of course, a full-funded, 100% from taxation library. But you often see, independent, libraries that are legal entities that have some connection with the town through a formal or informal agreement. We have for years been a supporter of the library through informal means, where many of the things on this agreement, are actually no change in what we're doing now. We're just codifying, making them formalized. There are some changes, though, and those are important changes, and they are additional things that we would do. I'm confident that we can do them if you choose to do them, but they are, they're not, it's not an unusual thing.
It just seems strange to me. The library comes to us, last year we gave them $37,500. This year, I'm sure they're gonna ask for 40 or, 42.5, whatever. And then they're gonna turn around and pay us to do their services.
No, they're gonna pay the cost of the service.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean, they're paying the cost. We're giving them the money, and then they're gonna turn around and pay us back with our same money.
But what they're hoping to do, I think, is to
I-
gain some economies of scale by using
I
our...
understand all that,
Okay.
and, but I wanna be sure, if we do this, that everything is spelled out exactly right.
That's right.
And so that's why I'm asking all these questions.
As you should.
There's a lot of stuff up in the air here.
Yeah, and that's why Shauna says there's, I recognize some of this. Shauna went to a whole different level, but as is her training, and that's what she does. And so, there's a lot more that needs to happen with this agreement. I'm confident that if you want to go in this direction, that's the question. If you want to go in this direction, that we can do that.
I would like to ask Shauna, okay, if any other nonprofit comes to us, can we turn them down?
We haven't asked that question yet.
No,
Well, right
we can
now,
ask that question.
do we already do it with Tasseltop?
Tasseltop's slightly different, but
What about
If we already do it with Tasseltop, then we're
What about
already we're already
Raymond
thinking of turning
baseball, or
someone down.
Raymond
Yeah,
soccer,
but they
Raymond
don't,
rec?
they don't get paid
If
though.
we
They don't
do
get paid
decide-
like, I think, like these guys
Or if
do,
you
is
do
what I'm thinking
decide
now,
to go
do you know what I
forward
mean?
with this, then we can design our own relationship.
And when you say
mean,
Raymond
So
Rec,
can we make a motion?
Well,
no,
I think
Yeah.
it's way premature to make a motion here.
Yeah, but we can make a
Why?
motion to suggest that, to have the
First
town
of all,
manager
I-
into an agreement following and review and
You don't want the attorney to come out and spell everything out for you before
Yes,
you make a motion?
And
No.
along with that review of the town manager and the Raymond Village Library, that before any decisions are made, it is brought to our attorney and brought back to the board.
In other words, we move forward with it and get the questions answered that we want answered.
Absolutely.
Well, that's
And,
what I
and
want.
then,
Right,
I mean,
right, but
I
at
wouldn't
the
support a
meeting,
motion
it
that
would
just
be-
say, go ahead and do this.
all right.
I have
No.
a lot of questions, and I want the attorney to answer
yeah.
it.
But I do want
the
the-
insurance
I want the
company to
Raymond
answer it.
Village Library to be able to stick their neck out as far as they can to absorb and get everything that they can to in turn offer it to the town, to allow the townspeople to have as much information, either internet, through books, or anything to that effect, to educate them to make them, better citizens.
They're doing it. Yes, Charlie?
you make that motion?
Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. My mother name me Charles, and my friends call me Charlie. But 14 Levitt Road in East Raymond. Occasionally, Mr. Bruno does a great job at identifying unintended consequences of some less than well-developed political decisions. And this is probably one of them. I'm also, this will be a twofer kind of night. I'm in agreement finally that our attorneys have done a better job at vetting something that's come before this board, whether it's this board or the planning board. I don't think you have to be a town manager, I'm not, to have looked at that memorandum of understanding and seen issues that you could drive a Mack truck or maybe an F-550 through with a plow and a wing on it. One of them being the maintenance and repair of the building and surrounding properties. I mean, we've just sat here as a community and talking about what is a albatross around the neck of this community, Jordan Small Middle School. We built 2 chimneys there, not one, we had to build 2 because we couldn't do it the right way. The outside insulation's falling off. We had to deal with a carbon monoxide problem that we ended up spending close to $80,000 in trying to fix, and we still haven't got that right. So to even suggest, and I'm actually surprised with all the high-tech availability we have in this day and age, it would be wonderful someday if Raymond could come into the 20th century and start having some PowerPoints so that the people in town, as we're discussing this, aren't trying to go back to their internet and looking at the e-packet, which is the only place you're going to find this memorandum of understanding, except on the desks of the folks here who are presenting. So some of the other issues that need to be discussed, I think, as you go forward is the maintenance and repair of the property, of the building and the surrounding property. Does it need a new roof? Is there a foundation? Is there a lead-based paint problem? You're basically, this is being brought forward to you as being, this is the hard work of a group of folks who are looking out for the best interests of the town. I disagree with anyone in this town who believes that there's an undercurrent and an overwhelming push towards marketing the town of Raymond. You talk about return on investment. The return I'm getting on my investment in the town of Raymond is not a lot of people know about it. We do a good job running this town, and we have a nice quality of life to live in. The library gets supported, and I believe if you look at that $37,500, it's probably, what, 42% of the operating budget? It's not 50%, but it's, we supported a good chunk of change on it, not to mention other endowments that they have and savings accounts. So when you look at those, and then you come forward to this board with a memorandum of understanding that says, the town manager, not the BOS, not this board, but the town manager, with a separate independent set of trustees, will administer and modify the agreement. So I'd ask Bernstein and Shore and Shauna to go a little bit further than 6, 7, and 8 and look at the implications 11 and 12 in this memorandum of understanding. Giving away the jurisdiction of a private entity, a 501c3, and believe me, I was an executive director of a 501c3, and I disagree with Mr. Reynolds, who says you can't get grants. Government entities, we've proven that. Mr. Foster and how we ran the land for the timber harvest was grants from the state. So we might not have activity or availability for a 501c3 library grant from the Rockefeller Foundation, but we may in other governmental agencies. If it were part of the town. I think what we're doing is we're creating another hybrid that is very, very difficult to control. You have this quasi-municipal, quasi-private function that both lobbies and provides a service, and you're signing a contract, and they have their own separate direction and board of directors that are directing policy. That we don't have any control over. I think it's so much cleaner, and I think Mr. Bruno is alluding to that, it's so much cleaner just to give them the money. Here, take the money, $37,500, maybe occasionally it's going to be $40,000. When we talk about services of this town, we cut off Tri-County mental health services. We've cut off services for Meals on Wheels. We've cut back a lot of services in this town. So with all due respect to the library, and I gave this speech 10 years ago, and it is still at the pleasure of the town meeting when these votes come up, but we have other needs in this town also besides the library. And I disagree that the library provides a service to the whole town. I don't use the library, I very rarely do. I have other means to get that same information, and without going in, yet two other members of my family use the library all the time. So I think you've got to be a lot more careful as to the unintended consequences of going forward. And just with what we heard tonight, it's similar to what we heard before the planning board on January 29th. If we're sitting here having to discuss things that have been brought forward, and even the presenters can't answer the questions, that's automatically a red flag. If you're in business and you're asking your middle managers for answers to questions at a board meeting and they don't have it, usually the middle manager is gone. Certainly the issue goes away until it's brought forward in a more rational and a mature way. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It was our intention as a board to be able to bring this proposal to the select board to see, to get your feedback in terms of direction. If we didn't have your support for moving forward than this, then, you know, that would be it at this time, and maybe we would revisit it at another time. You know, we purposely are not moving forward with asking to be a town department because of the costs associated with that. And we did take a look at a lot of libraries, a lot of surrounding libraries. Many of them are either public libraries and are funded by the town, or have some sort of a hybrid system. Some of them have board of directors that are voted in. Some of them had independent board of directors. We were looking for a way to have a really formalized relationship with the town, get some benefit from that relationship. And if it needs to be a different kind of agreement, then we hadn't gotten this feedback from Shauna prior to this meeting, and we'll certainly take a look at that, come back to the board, answering any of those questions and looking at a different kind of agreement. But I do think that it would help us. We're not asking for our employees to be town employees. We're just asking for an opportunity to access town services such as paying payroll, which would be a benefit for us, which would save us some time, would allow some efficiencies for our employees, such as direct deposit, which we're not doing now, and to possibly access some savings because of scale of economies. That's what we're looking at.
Totally understand. We don't blame you one bit. I don't blame you one bit for bringing that. That's because it's a great idea, looking from the outside in. But, I mean, it even comes down to something happens and the Raymond Village Library gets sued, our insurance takes it and pays the person off. Now our premium goes up. Well, are you going to pay that extra $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that our premium went up? Because
and those are the pieces, Lonnie,
right.
that
so I don't blame
right.
you, RVL, at all for bringing it up, because it's a great idea and it could benefit in a lot of ways. But for the big picture, it's really hard. And I'm with Charlie, amazingly, with Joe in that aspect, to say, if you want 45 because because 37 isn't working.
Did you call him Charlie?
Yeah. I know. Charles, Mr. Levitt. But when it comes down to it, I don't look down at you in any way or the group for bringing that to us.
Why don't we?
At all.
It's
a great idea, but in my book, it's
think
tough.
let's-
I'd rather give you extra.
I think we're opening the discussion is what we're doing with
Absolutely.
the library. And I think that's when you guys
I
brought
think
this to
that's
us.
great.
This is a starting
Great.
point. So starting that point, we've opened it up. So now, okay, let's look at the areas that we have issues with. And I
Can we
agree
get
with
around
Don negotiating it because he can get with them.
It's his
That's
budget, it's
right.
gonna affect.
Exactly. So it's one-on-one that he could talk and report back to us and we could do
But
this
it's a
again.
big thing, so he should bring it to us before.
You
he
know,
goes
we're
to
Oh,
the-
right, yeah,
Can I say
yeah.
one thing here?
Yeah.
You know,
Please.
one thing. The one thing I would say is, the intent of this is to try to help the library.
Yep.
Is it letter perfect in a week? It isn't. Is it driven to some degree by our timeline? Sure. I'm confident that we can get this to be letter perfect, although none of the others we've seen across the state of Maine are letter perfect, and have been, many of them, in force for 15, 20 years and longer. But I think we can probably do our diligence and get this thing to be letter perfect in some period of time. Charles is not party to the meetings that we had where we talked about some of the deficiencies and issues, and knowing that we were going to have to correct those. So I'm
We've already
committed,
said
I'm
that.
committed, I'm committed to trying to make this work for the library, if that's what you want to do. If it's better to give them the money and do something different, that's what I'll do. I'm just looking for some direction. But my overarching, what do I want to do, is to try to help them in the best way possible. The policy piece is you guys.
Let's move this thing forward and just see what happens. We're not making
Let's
any
get an
commitment
outline
other
and
than
some
taking a
bullet
look,
points or something.
taking a very close look at it.
May I speak?
Let me think.
Okay, after Marie.
Hi, Marie Conley, Chickadee Lane. I'm the unfortunate treasurer of the library. For the last year and a half, I've been looking for that endowment Mr. Levitt mentioned. We haven't found it yet. There's never been one. We run on a very thin margin. But I did want to point out that the land the library sits on is owned by the town. We're linked to you no matter what we do. We can't sell our building because you own the land. If somebody falls outside of the building, it's on town land and you're going to be responsible. So it's a kind of weird situation.
If the library fails to exist, we'll have to deal with the lead paint because we take ownership of the building. If there's lead paint. If there's lead paint. We haven't just tested it yet.
You can make it lid safe.
Charles?
The building's not that old.
Thank you, just, and only because the treasurer did bring this up, I do recall at the budget committee hearings last year that the Raymond Village Library had $100,000 in its savings account. I think that has been an issue, so if that's been expended, an update to the community would
We
be
have
great.
not expended it. However, we did install finally air conditioning. We're sort of getting to the 21st century, which was almost $8,000. That has got to come out of that $100,000 of funds. We're also using the investment income from that to support the budget. Hopefully this year we're going to make $5,000 to support this year's budget, next year too, another $5,000.
That's $13,000.
Yeah, and I can go on. We paid $1,000 for a shed. We got $2,000 of that donated by Hancock Lumber. Okay?
Yeah.
So the problem is that $100,000 is not going to last forever. It's not sustainable running a library,
Folks,
drawing it down.
Yeah.
Please, these are all things that are gonna be made quite public when we do the,
I just wanted to say one thing. I understand what Dawn says about wanting to help the library, but what the library wants to do is be of benefit to the community. What we need to be doing is serving a more diverse population of the townspeople in the library. At the present time, we're doing very well with programming for children, adult programming, and that sort of thing. But we want to be able to be of more service to the business community. We want to be of more service to the schools. We're working with the schools. That's important. We want to bring technology to the forefront. We want it to be a community meeting place for all peoples. And something that's very important about the library is the library is the only place that I can think of, and you may, everybody else may think of lots of places, where anybody can come during the hours that the library is open for absolutely no reason but to be there and to connect with other people in the community, people of all ages. And what I really would love to have anybody in this room do is come sometime to the library during story times. Come to the library during programs. Come and look at the technology that's been introduced in the library so that things are more efficient, so we can spend time and provide excellent customer service to the people that come to the library and the surrounding communities. So what I want to say is we appreciate all the help that that you give us, and we're asking for a little bit more. But what we want to do is be of service to this community in any way that the library needs us to be of service. And if we continue to watch that library grow and work with that library growing, maybe there will be other people that don't use the library more or see the benefits to their neighbors. So that's all I wanted to share with you today, and I appreciate everybody's input tonight, and thank you very much.
I think you've done a wonderful job with the library.
Sam, can I make a suggestion? We just move forward with some
move
more
forward,
information
yes.
and get back. We may decide no, but this way we have more information.
Just
maybe we could help in a lot of ways, but we can't help in these ways.
Right.
This is a lot, this, I'm
Okay,
game.
we
Let's do
understand
it.
that, we understand
Let's
that.
go.
All right, let's make a
Don,
motion or
no,
agree?
Don's got marching orders. He knows what needs to be
Yeah,
done.
you have your marching orders and that's it. Everybody agree?
I just want it vetted more, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, we all do.
Agree.
All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move forward with this. Okay, next, consideration of planning board warrant articles. Danielle Loring.
Hi, I have the report from the planning board concerning the warrant articles that they've been working on in the past few months, and they had a public hearing on January 29th. I don't really quite know how you want me to go through this, go through each proposed article and give you a description and what the vote was?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have been joined by our contract planner, Jim Seymour, so he's here to answer any questions specifically pertaining to the language inside the article. I do want to let you know that there were some changes made to the warrant articles after the public hearing, but our town attorney has considered them non-substantive, so therefore an additional public hearing was not required. So, because it had to do with wordsmithing rather than actual content of the ordinance. So,
How many warrant articles do you have?
7.
One sentence per warrant article.
Okay, so, Article number 1, it is a proposed amendment for the land use regulation map. What happened is when MDEP was looking at our our land use map, they noticed that we have Panther Run as a stream when really it is a river, and it needs to be zoned and protected as such using LRR1. So that's the proposed change, and the board voted 4-1 to recommend this for town meeting and to recommend for approval. Just to be clear also, that a positive recommendation only requires a majority vote of town meeting, and a negative would be a 2/3 vote at town meeting, but all of the 7 were given positive recommendations, so.
Okay, we'll vote on this one.
Motion to send Article 1 to the town meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Moving right along.
The next one is number 2, which has to do with changes made to parking in the commercial district. And so what happened is, some of you may be familiar with this issue, there was a setback requirement from the right-of-way of 20 feet within bulk and space, and this required someone to go to the zoning board of appeals in order to get a hardship variance, which is kind of difficult to get, but instead the board is moving that language into the site plan standards, which will allow it to have, what's the word I'm looking for? Waiver criteria, and allow for the board to have more flexibility in working with the applicants, as well as setting up standards that are consistent with the design guidelines. The board recommended to send this to town meeting with a positive vote, 5-0, so.
Motion?
Comment?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. I just would like to make just one adjustment to Ms. Loring's comment about that it's difficult to get an appeals on a hardship waiver. There was no difficulty whatsoever for that particular application for a hardship. It was very easily granted by the appeals board. So just in terms of making sure we understand the process as it is now, before you real time, not what it used to be or what it could be, but real time was a very easily, very little economic data was presented on the hardship. The 4 points of hardship were not even clearly discussed. So just a point of direction in the language that it was not difficult to get the appeal.
Thank you. Motion?
Motion to send Article 2 to the town meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Article 3 is the repeal of the residential growth management ordinance. Because of the language of the ordinance and the economic decline, it is caused that permits for the residential growth management areas to go drastically decline. So right now, there's only 8, and there's no way for that number to go back up. So the town attorney has recommended this be repealed, as well as the planning board, who is recommending this for the warrant with a 5-0 vote.
Any comment?
Mr. Levitt.
Yes?
Charles?
Just quickly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charles Levitt, 14 Levitt Road. On this particular article, it's one of those, and I won't waste a lot of time doing the I told you so. I think this went into effect in 2006, I think. Mr. Seymour agrees it was 2006. It was bad policy then. It was bad policy now. The market will dictate in controlling growth. We don't control growth in the town of Raymond. All of our ordinances, all of our convolutions on the planning board and the site plans does not control growth. The economy is the greatest driver of that. So what we have done in the past several years is spent over $83,000 with the comp plan implementation committee and rewriting ordinances and putting ordinances in place, only to have to come back 4 or 5 years later and repeal it. Now, I know in some people's experience, they'd say that's the way town governments are to operate. In the towns that I worked in, this was normal course of business. Well, that's one of the beautiful things about living in Raymond, is that we tend to be a little bit more critically thinking about these things prior to going to votes, and what we suggest to the public that they should, as senior counselors, to the public as to what they should be looking at and the guidance they get. When we have guidance later on that's going to say, what do we do when we don't have a volunteer fire department and we're going to have a professional fire department, those are decisions that people will be asking this board to look at, seriously look at. So again, when you go through a process of expending resources and then having to come back 4 years later and go, never mind.
We're just trying to get this approved.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't need your response. That's my comment time, and that's all I'm saying is that we're repealing something that we put into effect that we thought was going to be a great idea a few years ago, and it obviously wasn't. And it was fairly extensive. I think if you look at it, it's 3 or 4 pages of work that was done, and actually costs that was put into it for consultants and lawyers. So, thank you.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to send Article 3 to the town meeting, and just a caveat that I agree with Mr. Levitt again, it was a boneheaded move in 2006.
Second.
Don't encourage him.
Yeah, don't encourage Mr. Levitt.
Crying out loud.
Oh, that's, yeah, we're getting somewhere.
All in favor? Article 4.
Okay, so number 4 is changes to the site plan review classifications. This is in order to kind of increase the thresholds that allow for the different classifications of staff, minor, and major site plan review, while still keeping it under a permit for, the 20,000 square feet.
Permit by rule for stormwater management.
That. And so the planning board recommends this for the town meeting with a positive vote, 5-0.
Make a motion to send Article 4 to the town meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Article 5.
Number 5 is clarification of board and staff escrow fees. It came to our attention that some of the language needed to be codified in order to establish the relationships between what the different roles were for third-party review, the town planner, any attorney fees that may come out, and how to establish those escrows, keep them maintained, and keep our planning board operational, because even though escrow fees do not pay for staff time, they do pay for anyone that may be called upon in order to review an application. Just so that's how that works. So the planning board recommended this for the annual town meeting and for its approval with a 5-0 vote.
Motion?
Make a motion to send Article 5 to the town meeting. Second.
All in favor?
And number 6 is the creation of boat launch facility standards in the shoreline zoning provisions. This is basically just to create standards for boat launching facilities. It's a new section within the ordinance. Basically, it just helps to establish how to be set up, how to be maintained, what the relationship is, and how associated parking would work out. The planning board recommended this for approval for the town meeting, and, recommended it for the town meeting as well as for approval with a 4-1 vote.
Can you explain the dissension, the dissenting vote?
That-
What were their concerns?
Yeah, it wasn't you, Greg. That was Mr. Linnae, and
Yes, ma'am.
his issues.
I can explain it.
Oh,
No, well,
Do you want to do that, Dana?
well, his issues, I believe, were with the fact that was the difference between private and public, because the standards weren't being applied to private facilities. Therefore, he thought that if it was good for one, it should be good for both. Because right now, these standards will not be, they'll only be for public boat launching facilities, not for privately owned and operated.
okay, I'll make a motion to send Article 6 to the town meeting. Second. All in favor? 7.
And number 7, I am going to leave this to Mr. Seymour.
Oh, thank you. This article was, while we were doing the parking standards for the general land use, it was determined that we should also look at the shoreline zoning parking regulations. We found that some of the criteria for the design review was rather weak and vague, and the board wanted to have a little bit more measurable standards in place. So with that, we created these standards. There was also some discussion with regards to how do we look at off-site parking spaces. Some language was created for that as well. As Danielle had mentioned, there were some revisions to the wordsmithing following the public hearing, but that was for clarity purposes, and again, that passed with a 4-1 vote.
Mr. Levitt,
Yes.
unless the board has any questions, or can ask questions before.
I'm just going to make a motion.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I have to speak before the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charles Levitt, 14 Lever Road. Just to give a brief kind of example of what it takes to be a volunteer in this town. I think Mr. Seymour will remember the ensuing 20-minute discussion we had on a semicolon. I think you remember that, Mr. Seymour. Just on a semicolon in the draft that was presented to the planning board and the public on January 29th. 20 minutes. And the end result, as I wanted just to minimize my time here, was, well, never mind. We'll not include most of that language, both in the commercial zone parking, and to get to the meat of why I'm here tonight is to really to make sure people understand that from a perspective of a lot of your neighbors and the people in this community, whether you're on the Conservation Committee, or whether you're on Panther Pond, or whether you're on Pismire Mountain or Crescent Lake, that it was never, I don't believe, and it was articulated at that hearing, never the intention of this town to allow industrial paved parking in the shoreland zone. And anyone who says otherwise is hiding behind either some misconception for a reason that is not totally known to anyone in this room, for other reasons. So what we've done is created a whole new set of standards, which Mr. Seymour and Bernstein and Shaw, Mary Costigan have put together, and the planning board has brought to you to bring to town meeting on a 4-1 vote, all on the premise that the language that is being proposed that will be voted on is more restrictive. I think there's a lot of questions to that. It may prevent Walmart-type parking of 250 cars. And don't forget, this is a proposal by the Town of Fry Island Corporation for 250 cars, not 40. Their ultimate plan is for 200 building lots on Fry Island, and Raymond Cape will become the parking lot for that facility. So what Mr. Seymour has come up with and the planning board has put before you, which I'm sure you'll move forward to the town meeting, and I hope everyone shows up on June 3rd to say no. Our intention was not to hide 250 cars behind some buffers. And that's all this language and articulation will do. We all agree, I think, Mr. Seymour and members of the planning board, that it's the uses in the shoreland zone that need the fixing first. So what we've done is said, we've taken a car to the mechanic and said the brakes don't work, and they said, yes, we should change the fuel sensor unit. And you're going, no, but the brakes don't work. Yeah, well, we ought to change the VVC valve. The brakes don't work. That's the problem with the uses that we allowed in the shoreland zone allows industrial paved parking on Raymond Cape. Now, should all in Raymond Cape be LR1 or LR2? That should be a discussion also. But what we're allowing here, both in the past language, which hopefully will be overturned tomorrow night, and that application will be denied, and then going forward, the town will say, even with the revisions, what we need is a moratorium so it can be better thought out as to what the uses should be in the shoreland zone, and not just tweaking the fuel sensor unit when we have to stop this process and step back and really rethink it as a community. So I thank you for that.
Motion. Can I just ask a question? Of course. Obviously, Mr. Levitt was referring to what's going on the Cape. Has the planning board taken a final vote on that project?
No, it has not.
No, it has not. Okay. This article is trying to tighten up all that language
Correct.
before they take a vote.
No, this warrant will have no effect on that application.
Okay. That's all I
This
need.
phase, like, so if they came forward with any other phases, it would.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Yes.
But if I may, just to follow up on that, this board received a letter from the Friends of Raymond Cape articulating, and also to the planning board, a number of questions to ask. So to say that it's hard to get an appeal on hardship through the appeals board is almost like using the same terminology, that this will be more restrictive and prevent something from happening on Raymond Cape. The language in this as presented, there are multiple ways to go around that so that there can still be 250 cars of paved parking on Raymond Cape. People are shaking their heads. All you have to do is come up with a new use. An emergency use for the town of Fry Island, they can say, we want to put a fire engine here on this side. It's a new use. It would be a permitted use, and then all this language would allow a number of vehicles on a paved area and in this town, which all we've heard tonight is the protection of our water quality, protection of our rural character. This will be a small impediment. It will not stop it. We need to have done this process in reverse. We should have dealt with the uses in the zone first and dealt with the brake problem and then gone on to fuel efficiency.
But Mr. Levitt, you know that it's not up to the select board to deal with these issues and these ordinances. They come from the planning board. So that letter that was sent to the selectmen wasn't really our milieu to deal with.
And I agree, and that's why I stood up early and said that this is all for you to pass this along to the community, for the community to decide at town meeting on June the 3rd, Tuesday night, is to say, this is going with language that is imperfect. I think we just saw. When we came up with a growth management ordinance, we ended up coming back and repealing the whole thing. We spent tens of thousands of dollars. We impeded the process. We might have even put ourselves in jeopardy had the recovery happened faster. It would have been an emergency meeting in order to take away this absurd growth management ordinance. And this, in a sense, that's what we're doing here. We're rushing in. We're not addressing some of the salient issues that these people who are our neighbors have brought up. And I agree with you, Mr. Bruno. There is process. And I know there is a question about legality and morality. Some people don't see morals, but I see some of the foundation of the town of Raymond is its moral character as well as its legal character. So
Point made.
that's
Thank you.
my point. Thank you.
Mr. Seawood.
Yes.
I'd just like to point out that the board's mission was not to discuss anything with regards to an application that's before us now, but was to look at how do we make these standards fit so that we can protect the environment. It's not about allowing more parking or less parking. It's about how do we manage the space for that property. The limitation has been there all along. In the shoreland zone, there's a limitation of 50% of the lot area can only be impervious surface. That includes roofs, parking lots, walkways, things like that nature, gravel surfaces. That has been in there, that is still in there. That is the limiting factor for protecting our environment. On top of the fact that in Raymond, your shoreline zoning exceeds the normal 250-foot setback from other communities. You go the whole Raymond Cape. In some cases, you're almost 9,000 feet, width. And in your other zones, it's 600 feet. So Raymond has already taken the necessary steps to protect the environment by increasing that zone. And in doing so, you've limited the impervious surfaces within that zone. So that step has already been taken. All we were looking at is how can we have this tool to help work with the planning board so that we can fit parking in a harmonious way with the environment and the neighbors.
Understood, thank you.
Make a motion to move Article 7 to the town meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Done. Yeah, we're gonna do the public comment first, yes.
What were you crunching on down here?
I was crunching on my teeth.
Did you hear him crunching? I did. It was like crunch, crunch.
I was doing it as loud as I could.
Oh my God, it was so loud.
Okay, we're entering into public comment period. Anyone wishing to make a comment or discuss an issue to go before, to be made an agenda item on a future meeting?
Executive session? Is that gonna happen?
No, that's gonna happen, yes.
Okay, so that'll be after public, you've changed the agenda.
I didn't change the agenda.
Change the order, yeah.
Change the
I
order.
changed the order, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we're gonna do that now?
Yes. I'm a stickler for process, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we're at public comment, I just want to, as we go forward and discuss all of the issues that are before us, they're programmatic issues and then there's financial issues. And so in order for all of us to feel comfortable that we're doing our due diligence, we definitely we have to hear the community. And I do believe we don't need political insights for that. We need our own ways of communicating. And we have to have precise numbers. So my concern is, I heard a meeting not too long ago of this board where you were discussing the undesignated fund balance. It's obviously very near and dear to all of our hearts. Some of us want to call it the general fund. I don't know if that's to not want to be precise, but it's called the undesignated fund balance. And if you designate it, it's the designated fund balance. So when we did our audit, I think it ended June 30th of 2013, which wasn't that long back. We had, from all the proceeds of the tower, we had approximately $2.3 million in the undesignated fund balance, not 2.5. Now, I will stand corrected, but unless that $195,000 that we put in there as a rainy day fund to buffer this town against not new spending, but what we knew to be a tough fiscal year going forward, because our other bonds, that $300,000, don't retire until next fiscal year. And this board has talked about numerous things: new bonds, new funding for open space. We haven't even dealt with some of the core value issues of volunteer and firefighters and extra help for public works. We haven't even talked about those things yet. So in order to be precise, I would really feel more comfortable from a financial standpoint that when the financial staff from this town, and that includes the chief executive officer and the financial treasurer, when we're discussing these things, I would rather know that it's 2.3 million than 2.5, and I would think this board would also want to know that, because a $200,000 disparity either, and I think Mr. Bruno alluded at that meeting to, well, geez, non-property tax revenue must have come in great. Well, it either came in great or it didn't come in. And the actual undesignated fund balance is 2.3 million, not 2.5. And in this day and age, 200,000 may not be much amongst some people, but amongst friends, that's still a significant amount of money. So I would caution and ask that when those statements are made, and this board is making its decisions, and the Budget Finance Committee, that we have precise numbers. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Greg, no? No other public comment? Motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion to go into executive session under Title I MRSA subsection 4056A to deal with personnel matter.
Second.
Done. Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor? All right, next issue, town manager report.
The Sebago Lake Ice Fish Derby is Saturday and Sunday. Encourage everybody to come out and enjoy that annual event. Looks like we got plenty of ice, gonna have plenty of snow too,
Yep.
probably. Just wanted to let the selectmen know we're going to go tomorrow morning and pick up possibly pick up a new heavy rescue truck, assuming that it passes inspection. This is the used truck that we talked about that's in Connecticut. So we have negotiated a deal pending inspection. And I think that's enough for tonight.
Confirmed date for next meeting?
Oh, confirmed date for next meeting
March
is
11th works
March
great
11th.
for me. Works good for me.
I am not here.
Doesn't work good for you?
That's okay.
I beg your
I
pardon.
put it in my calendar already and everything. Figured it would roll.
Something like this.
I'm not around on the 11th, but,
Oh, you're not, all right. Oh, well, we'll do it another, we'll
No, no, no,
let's pick
no.
another day.
Oh,
no, I
absolutely.
mean, we got a busy month with budget finance, and I would just stay on the 11th, that'd be fine.
So I'm going after the 15th, so it has to be sometime before then. Selectmen comment.
Well, I would just like to thank Dominic in the corner for his production capabilities, and I really like the new mics over the audience because I got to hear some great comments that come out of the audience last week, or last meeting we had. I got called some great names, and I appreciate it, but at least I was able to hear them, you know, so it's always a pleasure when people say stuff like that. And I'm glad we were able to catch it on the mic.
Yeah. Wonderful. Motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion
Oh, I
to
beg your pardon.
do.
Wait.
I'd like to make a motion to accept treasurer's warrant dated 2/11/2014 for the amount of $78,706.15.
Second.
All in favor?
Make a motion to accept payroll expense summary dated 2/11/14 for the amount of $43,745.78.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah. Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Thanks for being a trooper and staying through our